me out with your smile. Like the sunshine brings the light. Fill me out with a flame. I will let you in this game. Take me out when I'm down. 'Cause with you I'm safe and sound. 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 Safe and sound.
you know I'm on something.
Jason.
Other people are relying on you now. You are the way this ends.
Tokyo Vice, streaming exclusively on Max.
All right. We're gonna play a game of Risk. I wasn't feeling like getting a bunch of been feeling lazy today for some reason. Maybe it's that my back got popped in yesterday and it's recovering. Oh, It's like all my muscles are sore in my back now after it getting popped back in. But we'll, fuck it, we ball. Alright. We're just gonna play a game of Risk. Watch this week's a sermon on this week's Bible passage. This week's Bible passage is Psalms 23. Watch that.
Meet Niles
Game of
Knapp.
Risk.
He's the owner of Gurney's. They're a seed company, and they've been selling exclusive varieties since 1866. That's because store-bought produce isn't bred for flavor. It's bred to have tough skin. For any produce to be delicious, it has to be carefully cultivated and selected.
Music reflects life's journey. Using lyrics to explore the human experience has always been significant and powerful, even thousands of years ago.
Father, we're grateful for your care for us, your love for us, and we celebrate that in this psalm. I just pray that we would push aside all distractions and thoughts of what this week is going to bring us or might bring us, and we would meditate, Lord, upon the truths that are discovered in this epic psalm. You know the lives and the experiences
I'm in the
of every
third
one of
seat.
us who are gathered, and honestly, we need your touch. We trust you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Maybe we try North America.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He
All right, I'm
leads
gonna
me in the
send
paths of
some,
righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I
Make
will
some
fear no
alliances.
evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they
Send
comfort
him a
me.
heart.
You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Of all of the 150 expressions we call the Psalms, there is no psalm that is more quoted, recited, memorized, inscribed on cards than the 23rd Psalm. It is without question, of all of the Old Testament passages of Scripture, the most famous Old Testament passage. Everybody knows it. Even unbelievers know this passage. Augustine called it the martyr's hymn because so many Christian martyrs recited Psalm 23 when they went to their deaths as they were tortured for Christ. Abraham Lincoln often referred to this psalm during his deep days of depression during the Civil War. George W. Bush recited it to a nation that was weary and wondering after September 11th, 2001. For get this, 3,000 years, that's how long ago it was written. This psalm has brought comfort to millions of God's people. It is a psalm that a child can grasp. It's that simple. But it's the kind of a psalm that a theologian could drown in. It's that deep.
I
Alexander
feel like
McLaren,
that's a
the great
lot, has to do with a lot of Bible verses.
Scottish expositor who said, the world could spare many a book better than this sunny little psalm. It has dried many tears and supplied the mold into which many hearts have poured their peaceful faith. But it is my belief that Psalm 23 is misunderstood, at least misapplied. Because when do you typically hear Psalm 23? At what? Funerals.
Oh, yeah.
It's inscribed in crematoriums and cemeteries and funeral homes. The Lord is my shepherd. It's on sympathy cards. And that is because there's a little phrase in verse 4 that says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And so it is included at times of physical death. But this is a psalm that has way more to do with life
Let's see what he does.
than it does
here.
with death.
All
It's
right.
a psalmist's relationship to the living God in his own life. That's why he says, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. A Miami doctor said, and I agree with him, the 23rd Psalm has been enshrined on a marble pedestal for far too long. We need to take it down and break it up and use it. And that's what we want to do today as we have this little devotion, this meditation on Psalm 23. It's time for us to take these truths off of sympathy cards and inscribe them in our own hearts. Now, Psalm 23 has been called the Shepherd's Psalm for obvious reasons. But if you look a little more closely at the psalm, you'll discover that it's not just about sheep and a shepherd. It covers much more. Allow me to explain. When you open up in verse 1, it speaks about the Lord in the third person. He is this and he is that. When you come to verse 4, there's a change to the first person. David now speaks directly to God, not as much as a shepherd as to a friend. It's personal. Then in verse 5, there's another change. We go from outside, outdoors, the valley, the field, to inside, the tent, or if you will, the home. So the first part of the psalm is in the field, the second part of the psalm is in the valley, and the third part is in the tent. So I want to look at this psalm in three parts. As a shepherd, God gives us direction. As a friend, God gives us protection. And as a host, God gives us provision. Let's begin with the first, the shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd, writes David, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. As a shepherd, God gives us direction. Now, I don't know what your high school was like, but do you guys remember FFA? FFA, Future Farmers of America. Was anybody in FFA? Okay, a few of you. Unless you were in FFA, Psalm 23 makes no sense to us.
What do you mean?
In fact, most of us don't even know a shepherd.
Oh.
And
It's like, what
it's
is-
not like one of the normal occupations that we have in our society. It's not your ordinary occupation. But David himself was a shepherd in Bethlehem. He came from a family of shepherds. And we know that David was out keeping his sheep as he was selected to be the next king of Israel. The idea of God being our shepherd is one of the most, without a doubt, beautiful and comforting metaphors in all of the Bible. One of my favorite verses of Scripture that speaks to this is Isaiah chapter 40, that declares, he shall feed his flock like a shepherd. He shall gather the lambs in his arms and carry them in his bosom and gently lead those who are with young. So the picture is the care that a shepherd gives to his sheep, and certainly Psalm 23 implies care. We have a shepherd who takes care of us, his sheep. I don't know if you know this or not, you probably do, but sheep do not take care of themselves very well. Sheep will die unless they have a shepherd who will take care of them. They require more meticulous care and attention than any other form of livestock. And so it's no surprise that the Bible over 200 times refers to us as sheep. Because of the tendency that sheep have. For example, Isaiah 53, all we like sheep have what? We've gone astray. We have all gone our own way. That's what sheep do. Back in 2005 in eastern Turkey, there were 1,500 sheep gathered together in one spot. There were several flocks with several shepherds who all
bitched out.
got together, put their flocks in one place, while the shepherds went off and ate breakfast together. Apparently nobody was watching the sheep. Suddenly, one little sheep had an idea. And that is, I'm going to jump over that cliff. And he did. And apparently all the other sheep thought that sheep knew where he was going. So 400 of them followed him before they finally found out that 400 sheep had died going over a cliff. The estimated loss was $74,000. Really? I mean, I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. They lost that much money. In fact, get this, the only time in the Bible that sheep are ever seen in a favorable light is when they are under the care of a good shepherd. Now, David was a shepherd, and so when he writes this, he's not doing this as an insult to himself or to those of us who are his readers, but in elation that God is his shepherd. It's like a kid bragging about his father. Look at who my dad is. Here's David saying, look at who my shepherd is. Look at who my owner, my manager is. The Lord is my shepherd. How many of you own pets? Let me see a show of hands. How many of you own pets? Okay. Some of you need to own pets, if that's all. So have you ever known a dog owner that you may not say it to them, but you think these thoughts? They should not own that dog. That poor little dog never gets out, never gets taken for a walk, never gets groomed, just sort of runs around in the backyard and barks all day long. You think they should not own that dog. But then there's the other end of the spectrum where you have the obsessive dog owner. They get little sweaters for their dogs and little shoes for their dogs, and they're primed and proper, and they, like Paris Hilton carries her dog everywhere she goes. And you go, oh, that is like so crazy. That is so overboard, right? However, if you were a dog and you could choose which owner to have, the first one or the second one, you know you would take number two. You'll take Paris Hilton any day over the dog who never gets out. And here is David saying, hey, my manager, my owner is the Lord himself. These are bragging rights for David. The other day I read an article. The National Science Foundation has committed to spending $10 million to build robots for children. They call them personal trainers for children. In their words, to influence their behavior and their eating habits. These are technological shepherds they're inventing. They plan to introduce them into homes, deploy them into schools, to teach children English, and to encourage kids to exercise. Last time I checked, those were called parents. And those were called teachers. And I don't want a robot as a shepherd for my children or for me or for my grandchildren. I want parents and teachers who are pointing their way to the Lord like David did, saying, the Lord is my shepherd. It implies care. God will care for you. It also implies guidance. You know, sheep, they do not navigate very well. All of us, like sheep, have gone astray. They do that very easily. Finding their way back home, not a chance. I have a pretty smart little dog I've told you about. I've bragged about my little dog, and we took our dog out, not even at our house. We put the dog in the car, drove it to a different neighborhood, got out, walked around by the river, and the dog ran away and got lost. An hour later, our dog was waiting back at our car in a foreign neighborhood, but had enough sense to navigate all the way back to where he got out of the car. One smart dog. A sheep will never do that. There are birds that can navigate around the world. A sheep will never do that. Salmon know how to go upstream to spawn. A sheep will never do that. I saw in Israel one time a flock of sheep gathered by a well. I thought they were just drinking out of the well, and I got closer to photograph it, and I noticed that all these sheep had their little heads smashed into the fur, the bodies of other sheep, just sort of like hiding, and their little tails were sticking out in a circle. And the poor shepherd had to break them up with his staff just to be able to lead them. That's the nature of sheep, but the nature of shepherd is to guide. So you'll notice twice in our psalm, once in verse 2 and the other in verse 3, it says, He leads me beside the still waters. He leads me in paths of righteousness. If there's one thing in this psalm that ought to set your mind at ease, it's this. You have a personal guide.
Ooh.
You know,
Oh.
I speak to a lot of Christians and have for a lot of years, and one of the common questions that we have is,
Bro.
how do I find the Lord's will for my life? How do I get direction for my life? I want guidance for my life. And what they expect, I think, to hear from me is sort of a 1, 2, 3, A, B, C formula for how to determine God's will. If you memorize this scripture and take this step and counsel with this person, bingo, you'll find God's will every time. And I think we're so hung up with guidance that we forget we have the guide living
What
in
a douche.
us. We want direction when God is saying, hey, I, the director, will live inside of you. Now, if you were traveling to a foreign city like New York City, would you rather have a complicated set of instructions to get you around town? Or how about this? What if a local resident said, yo, let me get in the car with you. I'll show you my town. You go, yeah, I want that guy. You've got that guy. You have the Holy Spirit. Jesus said, when the Spirit of truth is come, He will guide you into all truth. I know sometimes we wonder, well, how is that going to work? Is He going to give me an impression in my heart? Am I going to have to memorize the scripture? Is it going to be through the counsel of others? Answer, yes, all of the above. Relax a little bit. You're just a sheep. Leave that to the guide, the director. He leads. He guides. His second phrase, I shall not want. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Now, I've discovered that not everyone who says the first part can actually say with honesty the second part. The Lord is my shepherd, but not everybody can say, I shall not want. We live in a society filled with discontentment. We're always looking at what other sheep are eating. Yeah, that guy has greener pastures than I have. Lord, I trust you like they do. I serve you like they do. How come their pasture looks so much better than my pasture? It's greener over there. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. There's a great little book called...
I can't believe that he did that. That was crazy. I can't believe that he didn't slam into me.
A Shepherd Looks at Psalm 23 by Philip Keller.
He was willing to do that.
It's an old book. It's the musings of an actual shepherd who was raised in East Africa, later on became a shepherd by occupation in Canada, who raised sheep for a living before he became a lay pastor. And he said, I remember in my flock, there was one particular little ewe lamb, a female sheep, who was beautiful. Beautiful constitution, beautifully formed body, but always discontented. He called this sheep a fence crawler because no matter what pasture he led his sheep into, and he said, my pastures were the greenest pastures in the area. I had this one little sheep who would always move to the edge and sort of look out to see what's over there. He eventually called her Miss Gadabout because she was always gadding about looking for other pastures. I wonder if God doesn't have some sheep like that who are disgruntled, who are always complaining, and may I be quick to add that a complaining sheep is a disgrace to the shepherd, because a complaining sheep reflects the kind of care that sheep thinks the shepherd is giving him or her or not giving him or her.
I was like, what the fuck is that person doing?
And imagine how unbelievers feel when they look at complaining sheep's lives.
Is he gonna
You're trying to
break?
win people to Christ and you're always complaining and moaning. You know what they're thinking? I don't want to follow your shepherd. He doesn't take very good care of you, or so it seems, because you don't ever seem happy with him. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Contentment does not come from what we have. Contentment comes from whom we have. And if the Lord is your shepherd, you ought to be able to declare firmly and confidently, I shall not want.
I think I'm gonna
As a
kill.
shepherd, he gives us direction. There's a second principle I want to
I think that I'm gonna kill
as
Yellow.
a friend, he gives us protection. Now,
Especially
you'll
if-
notice the pronoun change in verse 4. From speaking about he and his in the third person, he speaks now
they're
directly to the Lord. Yea, though I walk through the valley of
Do
the
they hit
shadow of
down?
death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff.
Yep, I kill.
They
I
comfort
kill
me.
Yellow.
Now, immediately this tells me that life is not always going to be about green pastures and still waters. There's going to be some valleys that I walk through. And I know we don't like that. We hate valleys. I don't meet many people who go, oh, good, I'm in a valley right now. It's dark down here, praise the Lord. I think knowing the shepherd, we should be able to say that, but typically we go, Lord, please get me out of this valley. Just get me out of this valley. Just deliver me from this valley. Just carry me from mountain peak to mountain peak to mountain peak. In Jesus' name, hallelujah. But there are going to be some valleys. Shepherds will lead sheep down into the valleys. Over in the Middle East, where this scene takes place, when it gets really, really hot outside, like it is these days, shepherds will move their sheep down into the ravines. They call them the wadis. And sheep hate it. Sheep don't have great eyesight, and they hate walking downwards into a shadow, dark ravine. But the reason that the shepherd brings his sheep down there is because it's cooler down there. And that's where the streams of water are running, at the bottom of the ravine. In other words, sometimes the darkest valleys are pathways to the greenest pastures. The sheep don't know that. They go, oh, this is scary. Oh, I hate these valleys. Just wait. It's going to be cool down there, and it's going to be beautiful and refreshing. I've met many a believer who has testified to the fact that though they're going through a difficult time in their life, and it's the trial of a lifetime, so to speak, that's where they meet the Lord. They have direct contact with God and his comfort in a way they've never experienced before. So you'll have some valleys. Verse 4 also tells me that you'll have some dark valleys. What
Terrible
David calls
trade.
the valley of the shadow of death. Now, this is why it's recited at funerals, because of that phrase. But it doesn't necessarily refer to physical dying. The Hebrew word is figurative of gloom or calamity. Here's a guy who isn't dying. Here's a guy who's living but experiencing a dark valley, the valley what he calls the shadow of death. But let me say this. Even when you do come to an end of your life and you do die,
then I get
it's going to be okay. Death is sort of like going into a valley. When you approach that time to die, it feels dark. It feels like you're going down. Your movement is limited. Your breathing is coarse. It seems so dark, but you're not going to stay there. You're going to come out of the valley. Though I go through the valley of the shadow of death, not live forever in the valley. And then you awake and you have arisen on the other side in pure light. It's like walking through a valley. Charles Haddon Spurgeon used to say, death is not the house, it's just the porch. It's just leading you somewhere. And notice, it does not say the valley of death, but the valley of the shadow of death.
Okay.
Can a shadow hurt you? Can the shadow of a dog bite you? Can the shadow of a sword or a knife cut you?
What is he doing?
The valley of the shadow of death cannot destroy you. The substance of death, or
I'm
the
confused with
sting
why
of
he
death,
did
as Paul
that.
said,
That
has
was
been
weird.
removed. Only the shadow remains. That's why David says, I will fear no evil. The other thing this tells me in verse 4 is that you can find comfort in the valleys, for he notices, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. David is now speaking of the equipment that a shepherd carries. There's two pieces of equipment every shepherd would carry. A staff. A staff is the crook. And a rod. The rod is the club. So the staff or the crook is for directing sheep. The club or the rod is for protecting sheep. It was a little club.
Seems
that
like
hung from
everyone
the
here
belt
is
of a
decent.
shepherd and often had nails in it. It was for one purpose, and that is to beat up wolves. And you can imagine a little sheep looking up at a shepherd and seeing that weapon hanging from his side going, I'm comforted by that. I know that if the predator comes my way, I've got the kind of a shepherd who will give me protection. In the New Testament, we have already read in 1 Peter, that Peter describes Satan as a roaring what? Lion, seeking whom he may devour. But you need to know that that lion cannot get to you until he goes through your shepherd. And if he allows any exposure at all to you, it will be very calculated for your own growth. He just won't let you at his disposal. That should be very, very comforting to you. Because I know, again, a lot of believers, it's always the devil's this and the devil's there and the devil did that. Okay, great. Don't worry about him. You have a shepherd who will protect you. If you remember in the New Testament, Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. And then he talked about a sheep and calling their names, and they hear his voice and they follow him. But then Jesus said, I am the door to the sheepfold. And let me just explain what that is. It kind of lends itself to understanding the meaning of this passage. In ancient times, when they would bring sheep out to the countryside, they would place them in these little sheepfolds, sheep pens, which are like low-lying walls with an opening, a narrow opening with no door. And a traveler was over in the Middle East, and the tour guide brought him out to see this shepherd, and the shepherd said, my sheep get inside this at night and they're perfectly safe. He goes, wait. There's no door. And the shepherd said, that's because I am the door. I lie at night and sleep in front of the opening of this sheep enclosure. And no sheep can get out unless he goes over my body. And no wolf or predator can come in unless he goes over my body. Remember the old expression, over my dead body? So Satan might say, hey, I want to rip that Christian apart over my body. You can't get to that person unless I give you some kind of clearance for my purpose and for that sheep's growth. So this speaks of protection. As a friend, he gives us protection. As a shepherd, he gives us direction. As a friend, he gives us protection. And here's a third, and we close on this. As a host, he gives us provision. Verse 5. Again in the first person, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Now, please notice in verse 5, we have a change of metaphor, a change of picture. We're not dealing with sheep and a shepherd any longer. We're now inside the tent. being the guest to someone who is being the host and lavishly giving us a meal. Unless you're prepared to think of little sheep sitting around a table drinking coffee, which is a ridiculous thought, understand that the metaphor has changed. Now we're dealing with God not as a shepherd, but God as a host who lavishes upon us what the Middle East is so famous for, and that is hospitality. One time I was in the city of Nazareth, where Jesus grew up.
That would
I
be
was
so
with a
cool
few
to go there.
guys from our church. We were doing a little film of the area. My son was there. And this guy comes out of the house, never met him before, and goes, hi. And we said hi, and we talked. His name was Tony. He was a Palestinian Arab living in Nazareth. He invited us into his home. He gave us coffee, gave us tea, wanted to give us food, which he did, then asked us to stay through the night and have a huge meal with his family. We were unable to do that, but I just thought, here's a perfect stranger inviting perfect strangers into his house, willing to give us everything he's got. Amazing hospitality. That's
Amazing.
the picture that is drawn here. In ancient times, when you went into somebody's tent as a visitor, there was a protocol. First of all, they would give you the common kiss 3 times on one cheek, the other cheek, and then back to the first cheek. Then the servant would remove your sandals and wash your feet. Then they would place oil on your face, on your head, a scented olive oil to refresh you after the burning sun. Then they would give you a glass of
Hopefully
wine
what
with
I just
honey,
did
a
didn't
very
scare
sweet
anybody.
mixture to bring you refreshment. Then they would spread a rug before you, and they would serve you a meal. Lavish provision is the idea. Notice that David says, my cup runs over. Can't you just picture the host just pouring, and the guest going, no, that's enough, really. He just kind of keeps pouring over and over. Sometimes I play a little joke on my friends. You know, we're sitting at lunch and I have water, and they say, hey, can I have some more water? And I just sort of keep pouring until it just overflows onto the table. It looks like they made a mess. I know it's a adolescent thing to do, but what can I say? God isn't playing a joke on his guests. The idea is that you are just so abundant in your provision and your love for me, Lord. My cup runs over. And then you'll notice it's followed by surely goodness and mercy shall follow me. That's a declaration of the future based on the past. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. Why would he say that? He would say that because that's been the track record. You have taken care of me and protected me and directed me and taken care of me all through my life. I am now sure that in the future you're going to do the same. He's not saying, I declare by faith that my life will be painless from now on. After all, he's eating in the presence of his what? Enemies. He's got some enemies. But though his enemies pursue him, what David is saying is, I know that goodness and mercy will also chase after me all the days of my life because it's always been that way. I'm making a declaration of my future based upon the past. This, folks, this is a statement of choice. This is a statement of faith. It's forgive the analogy, but in the words of Winnie the Pooh, the famous theologian, it's the choice to be Tigger and not Eeyore. Some people have just chosen to be Eeyore. They're just always, it's always bad. It's not my cup runneth over, it's my cup leaketh under. But then there are those who say, no, I'm making a stand by faith to declare, based upon who God is, what he has promised, and where he has taken me, surely goodness and mercy will follow all the days of my life. That's the choice to be like Tigger and not like Eeyore. Our trouble is that so often we write our sorrows in the marble and we write our mercies in the dust. Not David. Not David. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. Do you know the shepherd? There was once a famous actor that was invited to a social gathering. People were so excited to have this actor there. He was known for his ability to portray characters and say lines in a way that was unparalleled. So that night at dinner, people were asking him to recite famous lines of different literary works. And there was a minister who was also at that dinner, and he said, "I'd like you to recite Psalm 23 for the audience." And the actor said, I'd love to do that under one condition, that after I'm done, you come and recite Psalm 23. Pastor said, "You're on." So the actor, as you would expect, in typical eloquence like a thespian would, rising of his voice and the falling of his voice, just said it perfectly. And afterwards, people gave him a cheering round of applause that lasted for several moments. Afterwards, the pastor got up. He was older. His voice was a little rougher. His eloquence was not perfect. But he recited Psalm 23. And after he did, there was not a dry eye in the audience. Everyone was in tears. And after dinner, they asked the actor what made the difference. The actor said, "I know the psalm. He knows the shepherd." We all know the psalm. Everybody knows this psalm. But do you know the shepherd? Do you know his direction in your life? Do you know his protection in your life? Do you feel and experience his provision in your life? Can you say, "The Lord is my personal shepherd. I shall not want"? And it could be that you're just in a little bit of a rut today. Did you know that one of the common problems that sheep have is called being cast, C-A-S-T. Shepherds will refer to a cast sheep. This is a sheep who wanders from the fold, gets out on his own. All us like sheep have gone astray, and wants to just sort of lie down in a comfortable position, in a little depression in the ground, and just sort of lies there, kicks back, and what happens is the sheep turns over just a little too much. And its legs are kind of sticking out, and then tries to shift and get out of it, and his legs sticking up like this. And the sheep cannot, for the life of it, get back on its feet. Gases build up inside the abdomen, cutting off the circulation, and the sheep will die.
He does do what I thought he would do.
The shepherd finds it and restores it. Verse 3.
Shit.
He restores my soul, means brings me back. Maybe you sort of feel like a cast sheep. You just wanted to get into a little comfortable zone, and now your legs are sticking straight up. You've wandered just a little too far, and you need God's goodness and mercy now, let alone following you all the days of your life. Then you make that decision, like David, to say, "The Lord is my shepherd. I'm coming back to his care, back to his fold." Because here's the catch. All the things about God as the shepherd will never be true unless you let him be the shepherd of your life. You have to come into his fold.
I was wondering, because that's what I would have done, is I would have broken into MySpace. I was wondering if he was going to do that. That sucks. He put me in third. I was in first. Ah! There we go. Now don't open that up.
By an act of your own will, in cooperating with his call.
Oh,
Father,
you gonna
we wanna
break
close
me
this
again?
Message today, this little devotional meditation upon this psalm, by acknowledging that not only are you the shepherd, you are not only the good shepherd, the great shepherd of the sheep, as is called in Scripture, but that you are our shepherd. You are my shepherd. And because of that, I really have no needs. You know what I need. You take care of me. You look over the wool and you pick out the parasites and you make sure we're standing strong. And even though it's dark and we can't see where we're going and it's painful, you're really bringing us to a place of refreshment, a place of growth, and a place of understanding and trust in the goodness of your motivation behind all that you allow us to go through. And even when we feel attacked by the enemy, we realize, Lord, that the enemy can only go so far, and you've given us all the tools to resist the devil so that he will flee from us. So, Lord, I pray that we would take comfort in seeing your staff for directing, and in looking up and seeing your rod, the club, for protecting. And so, Father, finally, as a declaration, we say that surely goodness and mercy will indeed follow, pursue, chase after us all the days of our lives. When one day, passing through the valley, we will wake up in the light and dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In Jesus' name, amen.
For more resources from Calvary Albuquerque and Skip Heitzig, visit calvaryabq.org.
This weekend and next, you will have the great privilege of hearing Steve Farrar.
I broke my...
Words like bold or hard-hitting, humorous, biblical, life-changing. These words describe the impact of Steve. He's the founder and chairman of Men's Leadership Ministries. He's a graduate of California State University, got his doctorate from Dallas Theological Seminary. Now, Steve has authored the best-selling book called Point Man, How a Man Can Lead His Family. Since then, he's written about 15 other books, a frequent speaker at conferences for Promise Keepers and so many other events. He and his wife have 3 grown children. He's from Dallas, Texas, but this weekend and next, he's with us here in Hawaii with New Hope. We are thrilled to have him speak into our hearts. So with a very, very warm New Hope welcome, would you welcome Steve as he comes? Would you do that? Welcome, Steve.
The fuck was that?
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you. I don't think this thing is on. Is this working? Can you hear me? It's working, isn't it? All right, good.
Why is he wearing that?
This is the 18th service this weekend. I'm just kidding. 5.
mean, he didn't lose much more than me. Is he gonna break him? Yep. Sick. Exactly what we needed. Ooh. Does he break me too? No? I don't want to be threatening towards... Ooh, I could have, actually. Does he break me? No. I hope that he doesn't see that as a threat. No, one's up. I was trying to go against that, but I wanted to make it so I had a little bit of a guard so that see. Oh. All right, let's the fuck? $15 plus 9. Yeah, now that I already did show that. Oh man, I'm stressed out now. Because he could run through that 6. Into my narcissism and Mormonism? What?
Welcome, friends, enemies, and everyone in between.
Okay,
to my
I don't
channel,
like this.
The Masked Mormon. I am, in fact,
I want to see what Tim Dillon is.
Smells like coconut. Cleans like
I wanna see
Clorox.
this.
Feels like energy.
Well, the interview's over.
We
Please
want
turn
to
off
know
the cameras.
what is a woman.
Please turn off the cameras.
The documentary.
React to this, Hassan!
Why does he say this? Tim Dillon mentioned
And
you
a
with
bunch of young.
Stavi.
I'm doing this movie with Addison Rae.
Yes.
Who, you know,
Perfect blend of
meet
styles.
Addison Rae. Like a lot of people, they're both. You know, listen, people like us because we're hot. We're sexy. We're young. We represent a lot of things to women.
Yes.
My fan base is mainly teenage women who are looking for.
Yeah.
They're looking for advice, and my advice to all of them is keep your pussy away from me and don't vote.
Don't even register.
Don't even register. It's not sexy. Is there anything less attractive than a woman voting? But I'm kidding. React to this, Hassan. But no,
Why does he say this? I'm so open-minded about Timothy J. Dillon's podcast and his conversations. He's just mad that I outed him as the guy who did the Canada big titty thing, okay?
So this week, videos surfaced on the internet from a place called Trafalgar High School in Oakville, Ontario. That's right across the lake from Niagara Falls. These videos show a teacher called Stephen Hanna, who apparently has been employed at Trafalgar High for several years. Recently, Hanna decided to dress like a woman, or more precisely, as a grotesque caricature of a woman, not a real woman, but a kind
Yeah,
of
bro, that was
inflated
fucking
Marilyn
weird. That
Monroe
was fucking
lookalike.
weird.
As part of his costume, Hanna strapped on a pair of gigantic prosthetic breasts, each the size of a 10-pound watermelon. We're not exaggerating here. They're visible from at least 100 yards away, if not from space. We'll show you the picture we are right now.
Tucker Carlson's like, why are M&Ms no longer f***able? Also, why is this woman's titties making me feel the way I'm feeling right now? After all, in America, feminism has made titties smaller. But here in Canada, just across the pond, it seems like titties are only getting larger. Why am I feeling like I want to say awooga as my tongue slides down my chin as my jaw hits the ground? And
I
my
wanted
tongue
to see-
rolls out like a red carpet as my
I wanted to
ears
see
start
what
blowing.
he was. Was that it? That was all that he was talking about, Tim Dillon with? There we go. That was the first time I ever have done that in a online game. Who's the greatest film director of all time? Let's see what he has to say.
What's up, everybody? Right now is the collaboration of the century. Across from me on the screen right now, I have one of my best buddies, as well as simultaneously the best and worst roommate I've ever had, Mr. Ryan Haley.
Oh my, that's how you're gonna introduce.
Soros movies ranked. I mean, not Soros. What the fuck? Scorsese. Why the fuck did I say Soros?
Today was the day that I put everything in perspective.
The best healthcare is there when we most and least expect it. United Healthcare. There for what matters.
Actually, I want to see what.
I don't think you believe that. Whenever
I thought that I saw one.
It does seem to me that there
where
are
he
some
had
things
he
within
had a
religious
decent
scripture that
person on here.
do need to be taken.
Who was it? I saw someone. Who was it who he had on who I really wanted to see?
Trolley problem memes, but taking them seriously again. Let's go. You find yourself at a lever. A runaway trolley approaches 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 towards infinity people who are tied to a set of tracks. Pulling the lever will divert the trolley onto a different set of tracks where no people are tied to the tracks. Do you pull the lever? Okay, I understand that at first glance this looks like a bit of a stupid one, and maybe the joke is supposed to be just how obvious this decision is, but it's not actually quite as simple as that. And the man that we have to thank for that is the great Indian mathematician Srinivasa Ramanujan. What do you get if you take 1 and then add 2 and then add 3 and add 4 and add 5, so on to infinity? That is, what do you get if you sum the total of the series of all natural numbers? Now you may think the answer to this question is infinity, or that it's incalculable, or something like that, but the Ramanujan summation put the value at, get this, minus 1/12. This is one of those fun little quirky things about numbers that seems to be doing nothing more than seeking to undermine the legitimacy of the entire mathematics.
What? Minus 1/12. I'm confused.
Seeking to undermine the legitimacy. Put the value at, get this, minus 1/12. This is one of those fun little quirky things about numbers that seems to be doing nothing more than seeking to undermine the legitimacy of the entire mathematical enterprise. However, there is an explanation for this. I'm not a mathematician, but there's a great video by Numberphile explaining why it is that if you take 1, add 2, add 3, add 4, ad infinitum, you might just end up with minus a 12th. And I'll make sure that's...
Okay, what? I actually just found this guy's channel out because he did a video about Risk. So I just found this guy's channel, the Numberphile. But we'll have to watch that video. Before we continue that video, we're going to watch this video and figure out why the fuck that shit don't make any sense. Let's see, what's the current score? All right, I'm ahead. Woo! Number 5. Oh, what the fuck? Third one on there. Bro, sometimes I swear that the
seasons change, and
YouTube
we
is
change
watching
with
me.
them. What we wear, what we eat.
Why
and
7 is
where we
weird?
go. Something else that
I'm going to give you an astounding...
All the videos that I've seen of him, I didn't see his face. It's weird seeing his face now. Look at it.
Result.
He looks goofy.
Result. So I'm just going to write down a little sum, and we're just going to see what answer it gives. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus and I include all the natural numbers, so all the way up to infinity. So what do you reckon the answer to this is, Brady?
Well, I would say it would tend towards infinity.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? The answer to this sum is, remarkably, minus a 12th. It's amazing. I mean, I first saw this result.
How? That doesn't make any fucking sense.
I started learning a bit of string theory. And what's even more bizarre is that this result is used in many areas of physics. This is a very well-known string theory textbook by Joe Polchinski. As you can see, sort of quite early on, page 22, we have this statement here, which is that the sum of all, this is basically saying that the sum of all the integers, or the natural numbers, all the way up to infinity, is minus a 12. All right, so we're going to prove now, without getting our knickers in a twist with Riemann zeta functions, we're going to prove quite a simple way why the sum of all the natural numbers is indeed minus a 12. So to do that, we're going to do this in a number of steps. We're going to look at a...
Bruh.
few different sums. The first sum that I want to look at, I'm going to call it S1, and it's 1 minus 1 plus 1 minus 1 plus 1 minus 1, and so on. That's the first sum I want to look at. The second sum I'm going to look at is 1 minus 2 plus 3 minus 4, and so on. Carry on in that process all the way up. And the third one is, of course, going to be our one that we're really interested in, which is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, and so on. So we're going to evaluate all these three different sums. Now, the first one is really easy to evaluate. We need to attach a number. Now,
wait, okay.
One is, of course, going to be our simple way why this all the way up to infinity is minus 12. All right, so we're going to prove now, without getting our knickers in a twist with Riemann zeta functions, we're going to prove quite a simple way.
He's greedy.
Why the sum of all the natural numbers is indeed minus 12. So to do that, we're going to do this in a number of steps. We're going to look at a few different sums. The first sum that I want to look at, I'm going to call it S1, and it's 1 minus 1 plus 1 minus 1 plus 1 minus 1, and so on. That's the first sum I want to look at in principle. The second sum I'm going to look at is 1 minus 2 plus 3 minus 4, and so on. Carry on in that process all the way up. And the third one is, of course, going to be our one that we're really interested in, which is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, and so on. So we're going to evaluate all these three different sums. Now, the first one is really easy to evaluate. We need to attach a number. Now, clearly, what is the answer to this? Now, you stop this at any point. Okay, if you stop it at an odd point, you're going to get the answer 1. If you stop it at an even point, you'll get the answer 0. Clearly, that's obvious, right? So what number are we going to attach to this infinite sum? Do we stop at an odd or an even point? We don't know. So we take the average of the two. So the answer is a half. There are other ways to prove that this sum is a half, by the way, which we can do if you want. But
no, there'll be a link. There'll be a link there because we've done it before.
Okay, good.
So you can see the link there.
Okay, so this is a half, but I think intuitively that's the easiest way to see it, that you either get 0 or 1, and therefore you just take the average. So this is the natural number to attach to this sum. But once we know this, we're laughing, okay? Because from this, we can achieve everything that we want to achieve. The next step is to find out what this sum is. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take 2 copies of this S2. Okay, so I'm going to add it to itself. So 2 times S2 is equal to, well, let me just write it out. So I'm going to write it out twice. 1 minus 2 plus 3 minus 4, so on. And then I'm going to add to it itself, but I'm going to shift it along a little bit. So that's plus 1, minus 2, plus 3, minus 4, and so on. Okay, I've just taken 2 copies and added them together. But I've done it in
That was pretty funny. Nice. I wonder what the... Oh, wow, they both were beginners. I don't even remember what Pink did. I'm getting back up there. I've noticed if I don't play more than 2 games, that usually I have a better chance of winning. I don't know why. Once I play like too many games, I start losing.
Think that we want to achieve. The next 3 plus 4, and so on. So we're going to evaluate is 1 minus 2 minus 1.
All right, I'm going to walk around to get my... Try to like stretch out a little bit. Oh. Because maybe part of the reason why I'm so sore is from sitting in that chair and not getting a bunch of movement. Because I'm used to like not sitting around all the time. Because I do construction for work, so There we go. Got a nice stretch in. There's like a giant knot right on my hip bone, basically.
Plus 1, minus 1, and so on. That's the first sum I want to look at in principle. The second sum I'm going to look at is 1 minus 2 plus 3 minus 4, and so on. Carry
1 minus 2 plus 3 minus 4.
On in that process all the way up. And the third one is, of course, going to be our one that we're really interested in, which is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, and so on. So we're going to evaluate all these three different sums. Now, the first one is really easy to evaluate. We need to attach a number. Now, clearly, what is the answer to this? Now, you stop this at any point. Okay, if you stop it at an odd point, you're going to get the answer 1. If you stop it at an even point,
you're going to get the answer 0.
0. Clearly,
okay.
That's obvious, right? So what number are we going to attach to this infinite sum? Do we stop at an odd or an even point? Well, we don't know. So we take the average of the two. So the answer is a half. There are other ways to prove that this sum is a half, by the way, which we can do if you want. But
no, there'll be a link. There'll be a link there because we've done
what?
It before.
Okay, good.
So you'll see the link there.
Okay, so this is a half, but I think intuitively that's the easiest way to see it, that you either get 0 or 1, and therefore you just take the average. So this is the natural number to attach to this sum. But once we know this, we're laughing, okay? Because from this, we can achieve everything that we want to achieve. The next step is to find out what this sum is. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take 2 copies of this S2, okay? So I'm going to add it to itself. So 2 times S2 is equal to, well, let me just write it out. So I'm going to write it out twice. 1 minus 2 plus 3 minus 4, so on. And then I'm going to add to it itself, but I'm going to shift it along a little bit. So that's plus 1 minus 2 plus 3 minus 4, and so on. Okay, I've just taken 2 copies and added them together. But I've done it in a particularly nice way, in that I just push this one along slightly on the bottom. So now you see what you get. You take this one and this and this, and I get 1. So 1 plus nothing is 1. Minus 2 plus 1 is minus 1. 3 minus 2 is 1. Minus 4 plus 3 is minus 1, and so on. And I'm going to keep getting this pattern. So hang on a minute, I've just got back to some that I started with, which I know the answer to. So half. Okay? So therefore I know this sum now. So I just divide through by this 2 and I get a quarter. So now I know that this sum, this second sum with somewhere the signs alternate, is actually equal to a quarter. So this is my second remarkable result.
This doesn't make any
Now
fucking
I have
sense.
everything I need to prove this crazy minus a 12 thing, right? Okay, so let's do it. I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to subtract this.
I guess that we're going into...
Okay, so I'm going to subtract S2 from S. Well, let's write them out again. Okay, so I'm going to write out S first, which is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, and so on. Okay, and I'm going to subtract S2. So that's minus... Okay, let me just put a bracket in now, because I'm going to minus all of this. 1 minus 2 plus 3 minus 4, and so on. Okay? Okay, 1 minus 1, what's that?
0.
0, yeah, exactly.
All right,
so I get
I'm
nothing
going
from that
to
bit.
make some alliances.
2 minus minus 2 is 4. Okay, 3 minus 3, 0. 4 minus minus 4 is 8. And so on. And the next one, I'm going to get, from the 5s, I get nothing. From the 6s, I get 12, and so on. And it proceeds in that way. And now you can see we're almost there now, right? Because look what I've got here. I've got 4 plus 8 plus 12. If I take a factor of 4 out, it's 4 times 1 plus 2 plus 3. Okay? It's my sum that I wanted. So now I've got a formula for my... So this is just 4 times S, which is my sum. So now I just solved this equation, right? Because I know what S2 is. So I have now the expression that S minus, because I know what S2 is a quarter, is equal to 4S. Okay, I take S from either side, so I get minus a quarter is equal to 3S, which implies that S equals minus 12. So now do you believe me? That's amazing, I love it. It's amazing.
Who'd have thought it?
That's amazing. Amazing.
If I got a calculator out and wrote 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, and I sat here until the end of everything, and then pressed equals, would I get minus a 12?
What do you mean the end of everything? You can't do it to the end of everything, can you? So, see, the point is, I know this looks like a bit of mathematical hocus pocus sort of thing, but actually, in truth, it's not. And I'll tell you why we know it's not. We don't, and I know you think I go on about physics too much, but we know it's not because of physics, because these kinds of sums appear in physics. And in physics, we don't get infinite answers. It's amazing. It's amazing. And it's just, do you know, I was trying to come up with an intuitive reason for this. And I just couldn't, to be honest. It's just, you have to do the mathematical hocus pocus really to see it. And then you just have to believe that you're not measuring physical infinities in nature. And then those two facts together, I think, give you confidence in this result. But it is clearly counterintuitive. And it's counterintuitive because, you know, intuitively you just want to stop the sequence. And the minute you stop the sequence, then all your intuition for this result goes out the window.
So if I do 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 and I go up to a Googleplex,
you'll get a big number. Yeah, you won't get anything like minus a 12. You have to go to infinity, Brady.
It's negative. I've added all these positive numbers together up to infinity, and I've got minus a 12. But it does play a role in lots of different things. There's the number 12, and
Yeah, I did every single number up to infinity, every single one of them, and equals negative a 12th. He's right. I did it in my head.
Links in the description if you're interested in the maths behind it, but I can assure you that this is a real thing, and it does, at least in some contexts, make sense. So think about it. Going back to our meme now, on one of the tracks are no people whatsoever. On the other track is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, and if Ramanujan is to be trusted, what does this mean? It means that the total number of people on the track is minus 1/12, which seems to have the implication that if you allow the trolley to run over all of those people, you'll actually be saving a 1/12 of a person. Now do with that information what you like, but for me I think it does two helpful things. Firstly, it shows me why I don't think a situation like this can obtain in reality. I don't think there can be an actually infinite number of people tied up on a track, because it leads to some rather wacky conclusions, not just in the context of the Ramanujan summation, but in the context of infinity more broadly. We've previously discussed on a previous episode of Trolley Problem Memes an infinite death type trolley problem, and I'll link that down in the description for a little bit more discourse on why this might be a troubling concept. The second thing I think this does is that it helpfully demonstrates the controversy, as if it wasn't already obvious enough, of saying that the sum of the series of natural numbers does in fact equal minus a 12th. This appears to be something that is somewhat controversial in the world of mathematics, as you can probably imagine, and I'm informed by the arguments in the comments of the Reddit thread from which I took this meme that there might be some problems with the mathematics involved in doing 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, so on to infinity, and getting minus a 12th. But as I say, I'm not a mathematician, just something to be aware of. Okay, next. You can pull a lever to divert the trolley onto a different track, but you don't know what's on the other track. You're surrounded by news media that are biased and giving you an unclear picture and mixed information. Luckily, there's a tool that you can use to compare the different reports to help you make an informed decision. The question is, why would you not use that tool to help form your opinion? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that tool exists, and it's the sponsor of today's video, Ground News. I think it's fair to say that trust in our news sources is at something of a low point, and part of the reason for this is fragmented, biased reporting that makes it impossible to develop a balanced perspective. Ground News is an app and a website that aggregates stories from thousands of local to international outlets in one place to help you better analyze stories to find out what's really going on. And check this out, I can go to the blind spot tab, which can tell me which stories are being under or over-reported by the left and the right side of the political spectrum. I can also search for topics, such as religion, and find the blind spot feature right there on the topic page. Recently, a New Jersey court backed a Catholic school's dismissal of one of its teachers due to her becoming pregnant out of wedlock. Let's compare the headlines. A headline from the left-leaning New Jersey... aware of. Okay, next. You can pull a lever to divert the trolley onto a different track, but you don't know what's on the other track. You're surrounded by news media that are biased and giving you an unclear picture and mixed information. Luckily, there's a tool that you can use to compare the different reports to help you make an informed decision. The question is, why would you not use that tool to help form your opinion? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that tool exists, and it's also my channel. Next problem. The lever only changes the trolley's direction. Okay, so this one's a bit depressing. It seems like we're in a situation of either having to pull the lever back and forth for an arbitrary amount of time, or at some point decide to let go and allow the trolley to run over the poor man on the tracks. Now, it does intuitively seem callous to not pull the lever at all and just allow the trolley to immediately kill this man. However, the other extreme would be to keep pulling this lever back and forth
until you die. Whew.
non-stop until he dies from some other means, such as starvation or boredom.
Or you die, like from exhaustion and not being able to...
Seems to be...
And eventually you're going to have to sleep.
Well, how long are you obligated to pull that lever before allowing the trolley to run over the man? But it might not be quite as simple as that. If you think about it,
what is
if we decide to keep this man alive,
doing?
he's going to die anyway, and he's probably going to die of something considerably more painful than being hit by a trolley. That is, he's going to die of something like starvation or dehydration. In that situation, it might actually be preferable to be hit by the trolley. And consider that if you do start pulling the lever back and forth, you're now in a position where at some point you're going to have to decide when to stop. That is, if you don't want to allow this man to die of something like dehydration or starvation. So now you've got a bit of a harrowing decision to make. And you've now injected yourself into the situation. So whatever happens in the end, you're kind of a part of this now. You'd also be giving the person on the tracks more time to cognize the situation, possibly even having to have conversations with you about whether they want to be run over or whether they want to die of starvation. I mean, I think I know what most people would choose in that situation, but you're forcing them to actually make that decision proactively. Therefore, okay, it might go against what we immediately think upon first seeing this meme, but I think that you actually probably shouldn't touch the lever at all. But what if it were the case that somebody was bringing him food and water, keeping him alive, maybe even providing him with entertainment, audiobooks to listen to, friends and family to talk with? Of course, I would be interested to know what the motivations were of the person who set up this entire affair, but hey, we're doing philosophy. Stranger hypotheticals have existed in its history. Now, if you keep pulling that lever back and forth, this person gets to have a long and possibly quite meaningful life. They get to listen to books, they get to have conversations with people, they get to spend time with family and friends. Now, you may think this situation is still harrowing enough to allow the person to die. I mean, he's still tied up on a train track, and yeah, okay, although he might find some sort of transient meaning in his life, he's still faced with the prospect of eventual annihilation at some point by this trolley. But if that's the case, if we say that this is a situation in which we should just allow the trolley to run him over because of the inevitability of its outcome anyway, what does that say about the situation of the rest of us? I mean, we're all in a situation where death will inevitably come to us, and sure, we're not tied up on a train track, but we're in an analogous situation. That's the situation that many normal human beings are in. Sure, they have certain conditions and issues that they're having to deal with, but their life is, on the whole, they think, worth living. The inevitability of our eventual demise is not necessarily a good reason to prematurely bring it about. I mean, look, let's adapt this hypothetical. Let's say that the man isn't tied up on a track whatsoever. Instead, he's just going around living his normal life. But for some reason, there's an explosive device that's been medically inserted into him, which if it explodes will instantly kill him. Now, you come to this track and you see the trolley, and you can pull it back and forth, but instead of a person on the track, it's a detonator. If the trolley hits the detonator, this man, wherever he is in the world...
Why so serious? We create the world of the dream. It's called Inception.
will immediately explode. How long do you spend pulling that lever back and forth? It really does seem now that not pulling the lever at all is probably a callous thing to do. But surely you can't spend the rest of your life stood at this lever pulling it back and forth, not only because it probably exhausts you fairly quickly, but also it seems like you might have the right not to do that. Even in this case, where the person involved is living
worth living, a normal life,
and you've got this option to keep them alive, I think it's a virtuous thing to do to pull that lever back and forth for a bit, but I think it's very difficult.
Bro,
to
what
say
is he
it's a
doing?
moral obligation. The reason for this is because it seems to commit us to the view that any time
He
we
sucks.
can inconvenience ourselves to save the lives of other people, we have a moral obligation to do so.
Fine.
This has radical
I'll just smack your
implications when
fucking-
it comes to what we should be doing for charity. I've discussed this in a video before called Should You Sell All of Your Possessions? And I'll make sure that that's linked down in the description if you want a bit more detail. But to put it bluntly,
I already told you
I
that you
own many
could.
things. I own this chair. I own a razor to shave my face. If I didn't buy a razor to shave my face, I could save up the money I would have spent on those razors across my life, donate it to a charity, probably buy some malaria nets and save some people's life. How could my facial hair ever be more important than the life of a child dying of malaria? I think the kind of position that obliges you to pull that lever back and forth is the same kind of position that obliges you to sell all of your possessions to give it to charity until your life is about as bad as the people who you could otherwise be saving. But like I say, there's more information and discourse on that particular problem in the video, Should You Sell All Your Possessions? There is no dire emergency. Do you accept your duty to return the cart even though you gain nothing? What is it they say? This is the ultimate test of a self-governing person. There's no official legal obligation for you to return it to the cart. There's no one around.
Wait, what was the
ultimate test of a self-governing person? You gain nothing. What is it they say? There is no dire emergency. Do you accept your duty to return the cart even though you gain nothing? What is it they say? This is the ultimate test of a self-governing person. There's no official legal obligation for you to return it to the cart. There's no one around. There's nobody that's going to judge you for it. Do you go and put it back anyway? The idea is that if you do, then you're a good self-governing person, because even though it's of no benefit to you, you're still keeping some sense of orderliness and propriety in your life. However, I do take issue with this formulation. It says, do you accept your duty to return the cart even though you gain nothing? I don't think that's possible, I'm afraid. What do I mean? Well, to put it in a phrase, altruism doesn't exist. Many people like me and before me have been of the opinion that there's no such thing as an action that you can freely and intentionally commit that doesn't benefit you in some way. Thomas Hobbes is an example of somebody who thinks that this is the case. I heard a story a while ago that I'm almost certain...
I don't know if I've ever read any Thomas Hobbes.
...as an action that you can freely and intentionally commit.
I don't think
that
so.
Doesn't benefit you in some way.
I can't
Thomas
think of a
Hobbes
book
is an
of his.
example of somebody who thinks that this is the case. I heard a story a while ago that I'm almost certain is apocryphal, that Thomas Hobbes was once walking with a friend or a colleague, and upon seeing a homeless person, Hobbes decided to donate some money to him. And his friend said, "See, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. That's an altruistic behavior." To which Hobbes said, "No, I mean, I saw the homeless man and he looked like he was in pain, and that upset me. And so by giving him the money, that relieved me of the pain that I was feeling through my empathy." Now, this might seem like a bit of a crude analysis, but I don't think it's essentially incorrect.
Shit!
In fact, there are some circumstances I think emphasize this even more strongly. Consider a man who decides to run into a burning building because he hears that there's a child in there trapped somewhere, and he comes out with the child, and the news media run up
What
to him and
was
say,
that?
"Goodness, where did you find the bravery to do that? How could you possibly have run into a burning building?" And he says, I couldn't have lived with myself if I didn't do it. I just had to. Something came over me." We think that man is more of a hero. We think he's more virtuous. We celebrate the fact that he's the kind of person that just couldn't have allowed that child to burn. But what's he saying there? He's saying he went in because otherwise he would have not been able to live with himself. He would have been upset with himself. He would have been experiencing something negative about himself. So was this truly altruistic?
Okay,
or was
he
it
doesn't lock
motivated by
himself
something
in.
a little more self-serving? Maybe you can accept the milder principle that there's a bit of both going on, but there's no sense in which it doesn't benefit him in any way whatsoever. So, going back to the meme, do you accept your duty to return the cart even though you gain nothing? Well,
Do you gain
something.
nothing?
You always gain something
Exactly.
whenever you do anything consciously that you in some way want to do. I mean, sure, there's nobody else around. You're not going to have to deal with the reproaches of other people if you leave shopping carts, which, by the way, in the UK, ironically, we call trolleys, in the middle of the road. But you may have to deal with the reproach of your own conscience. We are, after all, evolutionary creatures with an ingrained sense of morality, and we've been mostly socialized into thinking that this kind of behavior, leaving shopping carts in the middle of the road, is unacceptable. And rational or not, this is something that we've internalized. And so I find it difficult to believe that somebody who decides to return a trolley to its place is literally getting nothing from it. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
Ooh, mama.
Safely removes pore gunk.
Damn, that's
Just
crazy.
like that. The #1 trusted blackhead remover.
Why would he have done that? That was just dumb.
Biore.
I chose Wix for my business because of its massive scope for functionality and freedom of creation. Being able to integrate and change and develop at my own pace. I offer a range of products and services. To manage it all from one place is essential.
Trolley problem memes.
I kind of like that. I want to watch another one.
Trolley problem memes, episode 3. Let's go. Preventable genocide. The train is packed with nuclear warfare. Okay, first I want to know what it means exactly to have a train that's packed with nuclear warfare. I'm going to assume that what they mean is something like the train is packed with nuclear warheads, though the first imagery is a little bit more exciting. The train is packed with nuclear warfare and is headed to a town. If it reaches the town, it will kill more than 10,000 human beings, I'm presuming. If you pull the lever, the one you love the most will get run over and die. But the train will come to a safe stop on the brake pad. So do you pull the lever, killing the person that you most love, or do you do nothing, allowing it to go and nuke a town of more than 10,000 people? It's specified that the person you would run over is the person you love the most. So it's not some random stranger. I'm actually not sure if this is ethically relevant or not. It's a bit tricky to determine whether this applies to family, but certainly when you have a friend or a significant other, if you analyze it quite coldly, what you essentially have is something like a contractual relationship, a mutual understanding that you're going to put that person's interests over the interests of a stranger. That's essentially what friendship is. Now, of course, there are different kinds of friendships. I mean, sometimes you just enjoy another person's company, you just take pleasure from spending time with them. But as Aristotle pointed out, this kind of friendship is a little vapid. You're essentially just using another person for your own pleasure. You're only spending time with them because you enjoy it. Similarly, there can be professional relationships where you're friends with somebody who's a work colleague, and the only real reason you spend time with them is because you think it might benefit your career or be mutually beneficial in that respect. Again, this is probably a little bit vapid. If somebody is a true friend, that is somebody that I truly love, I'm not just going to spend time with them when they're bringing me pleasure, even if they're being a bit depressive and upset. Maybe they've gone through a difficult experience recently. I'm going to spend time with them anyway, even though it might actually be a bad experience for me, because I have a duty of care towards this person, them being my friend. So arguably there is a case to be made, ethically speaking, that if this person is a friend or someone that you love most in the world and there's a mutual understanding in that respect, that you've made something like an implicit promise to them to put their interests above those of a stranger. And if that's true, then maybe you should be more reluctant to kill that person than to kill a stranger, not just because of emotional reasons, but actually ethically, rationally too. However, I do think the main reason that this is specified as the person you love the most in the world is for the emotional reasons. It's not really going to be an ethical consideration that makes you less likely to kill them. It's going to be an emotional one. You don't want them to die. But of course, many people will say that when we're doing ethics, we should be putting our emotional impulses to the side and acting rationally. So, can we kill any person, whether we love them or not, in order to prevent a nuclear warhead destroying a city of 10,000 people?
He didn't do what I wanted him to. Oh! What the fuck? Is he gonna break me up here? That ain't how that worked, motherfucker. I don't get what the fuck he did. That was dumb
If
as
you're
shit.
a utilitarian or
That was some weird shit. Boom, boom. Split. Slap. If he bots out, I just kill. Okay, he doesn't bot out. Does he break me? Oh, you motherfucker! You cheeky fucking cunt. Alright. Motherfucker. Thinking you can just fucking do that?
or consequentialist, the answer is going to be pretty straightforward for you here. Of course, you should pull the lever. You should be killing one person to save 10,000. Utilitarianism is quite a cold ethical theory. It tells you that whatever's going to maximize the amount of pleasure and minimize the suffering in the world is just what you should do. But of course, this is complicated by the fact that many people believe in the existence of human rights. They think that by virtue of being a human, you possess a set of moral and/or legal rights that protect you against various things. And the most fundamental of these is always the right to life. That is, you have a right not to be killed. Now, there are exceptions to this right, or qualifications that need to be made to the right, depending on your view, in certain circumstances.
Yeah,
For
I
example,
still
most
fucking
people
take
agree that you can kill someone in self-defense. Even if they have a right to life, if you have to kill them to protect your own right to life, then you're able to violate that right in order to kill them. There are other views about rights, such as specificationism, which would say that you're not technically violating that person's right. You're just specifying exactly what the right is that they have, and in this circumstance, when they're attacking you, they just don't have a right not to be killed in self-defense. But whichever way you look at it, the idea is that yes, you can sometimes kill somebody despite them having this thing called a right to life. So the question is this one of those exceptions? Is saving a lot of other people one of the cases in which a person's right to life can be violated? And generally speaking, people have agreed that no, this isn't a permissible reason to kill somebody, to violate their rights. One of the most famous examples of this is to imagine a patient in the hospital who has 5 healthy organs, and there are 5 other patients somewhere else in the hospital that all need each one of those individual organs to stay alive. The question is, can I kill that first patient, harvest their organs, and use them to save the 5 other
There you go.
people.
Boom, boom,
Most
boom,
people's
boom.
intuitions scream at them
Dumb
that
fuck!
no, you can't do this. You're not allowed to do it, despite the fact that killing this person would
This guy's
save many
stupid.
more people. But this doesn't seem just to be
Take
because
this,
it's
put it
5
up
people
there,
that you're saving.
move
Oh, that's
that
not
up
enough
to there.
people. It seems to be a matter
What
of
he should have
principle.
done is he
It
should
doesn't
have
matter
went
if it's
boom,
5
boom,
people
boom,
or 6 people or
boom,
10 people.
and then move
You don't
this
get to
up to
kill
there.
somebody against
And then
their
we
will
choke this
to
guy the
save
fuck
those
out.
other people. But then what if we raise this number to something extreme, like 10,000? Then we're in the situation of this trolley problem. And if the principle is that saving lots of other people's lives is not a sufficient reason to kill another person, then in this situation, we shouldn't be killing the person. But this seems a little bit crazy, right? Are we really going to allow this bomb to kill 10,000 people just to protect the rights of one person? I mean, what about the right to life of those 10,000 people? Here's where
so
things
much
get
shit.
interesting. We need to understand that having a right to life doesn't necessarily entail having a right to your life being protected and prolonged. Having a right to life usually means that someone can't kill me, but it doesn't mean that somebody has an obligation to save me. For example, if I'm drowning in a pond and somebody has to risk their life to come and save me, I don't have a right to demand that they do that, even though them failing to do so would cause me to die. My right not to be killed. Now there are exceptions to
He's
this right, or
offline.
qualifications
All
that need
right.
to be made to the right depending
Now
on
that
your
he's
view,
offline-
in certain circumstances. For example, most people agree that you can kill someone in self-defense.
attack red.
Even if they is just what you should do. But of course, this is complicated by the fact that many people believe in the existence of human rights. They think that by virtue of being a human, you possess a set of moral and or legal rights that protect you against various things. And the most fundamental of these is always the right to life. That is, you have a right not to be killed. Now, there are exceptions to this right, or qualifications that need to be made to the right, depending on your view, in certain circumstances. For example, most people agree that you can kill someone in self-defense. Even if they have a right to life, if you have to kill them to protect your own right to life, then you're able to violate that right in order to kill them. There are other views about rights, such as specificationism, which would say that you're not technically violating that person's right. You're just specifying exactly what the right is that they have, and in this circumstance, when they're attacking you, they just don't have a right not to be killed in self-defense. But whichever way you look at it, the idea is that yes, you can sometimes kill somebody despite them having this thing called a right to life. So the question is this one of those exceptions? Is saving a lot of other people one of the cases in which a person's right to life can be violated? And generally speaking, people have agreed that no, this isn't a permissible reason to kill somebody, to violate their rights. One of the most famous examples of this is to imagine a patient in the hospital who has 5 healthy organs, and there are 5 other patients somewhere else in the hospital that all need each one of those individual organs to stay alive. The question is, can I kill that first patient, harvest their organs, and use them to save the 5 other people? Most people's intuitions scream at them that no, you can't do this, you're not allowed to do it, despite the fact that killing this person would save many more people. But this doesn't seem just to be because it's 5 people that you're saving. Oh, that's not enough people. It seems to be a matter of principle. It doesn't matter if it's 5 people or 6 people or 10 people. You don't get to kill somebody against their will to save those other people. But then what if we raise this number to something extreme, like 10,000? Then we're in the situation of this trolley problem. And if the principle is that saving lots of other people's lives is not a sufficient reason to kill another person, then in this situation, we shouldn't be killing the person. But this seems a little bit crazy, right? Are we really going to allow this bomb to kill 10,000 people just to protect the rights of one person? I mean, what about the right to life of those 10,000 people? Here's where things get interesting. We need to understand that having a right to life doesn't necessarily entail having a right to your life being protected and prolonged. Having a right to life usually means that someone can't kill me, but it doesn't mean that somebody has an obligation to save me. For example, if I'm drowning in a pond and somebody has to risk their life to come and save me, I don't have a right to demand that they do that, even though them failing to do so would cause me to die. My right to life doesn't mean that I have a right to my life being protected and prolonged. It just means that I have a right for it not to be ended. So in the case of the organ transplant situation, these 5 people who are going to...
Yeah, this person's a piece of shit. I'm not even gonna tell them good game. Oh, they're nope. Why is the bot not breaking me ever? Oh, there we go. I think that they came back and realized that they still couldn't win, so they were like, "Wow, shit."
die because they need new...
Alright, let's go back.
Specified that the person you would run over is the person you love the most. So do you pull the lever, killing the person that... 3. Let's go. Preventable genocide. The train is packed with nuclear warfare. Okay, first I want to know what it means exactly to have a train that's packed with nuclear warfare. I'm going to assume that what they mean is something like the train is packed with nuclear warheads, although the first imagery is a little bit more exciting. The train is packed with nuclear warfare and is headed to a town. If it reaches the town, it will kill more than 10,000. 10,000 human beings, I'm presuming. If you pull the lever, the one you love the most will get run over and die. But the train will come to a safe stop on the brake pad. So do you pull the lever, killing the person that you most love, or do you do nothing, allowing it to go and nuke a town of more than 10,000 people? It's specified that the person you would run over is the person you love the most. So it's not some random stranger. I'm actually not sure if this is ethically relevant or not. It's a bit tricky to determine whether this applies to family, but certainly when you have a friend or a significant other, if you analyze it quite coldly, what you essentially have is something like a contractual relationship, a mutual understanding that you're going to put that person's interests over the interests of a stranger. That's essentially what friendship is. Now, of course, there are different kinds of friendships. I mean, sometimes you just enjoy another person's company.
We're just gonna keep watching stuff like this and then play one more game.
You just take pleasure from spending time with them. But as Aristotle pointed out, this kind of friendship is a little vapid. You're essentially just using another person for your own pleasure. You're only spending time with them because you enjoy it. Similarly, there can be professional relationships where you're friends with somebody who's a work colleague and the only real reason you spend time with them is because you think it might benefit your career or be mutually beneficial in that respect. Again, this is probably a little bit vapid. If somebody is a true friend, that is somebody that I truly love, I'm not just going to spend time with them when they're bringing me pleasure, even if they're being a bit depressive and upset. Maybe they've gone through a difficult experience recently. I'm going to spend time with them anyway, even though it might actually...
Yeah, no, I spend time with my friends when they're in the dumps and stuff, and they're not that fun to hang out with at that time, but...
be a bad experience for me because I have a duty of care toward this person, them being my friend. So arguably there is a case to be made, ethically speaking, that if this person is a friend or someone that you love most in the world and there's a mutual understanding.
Also, like, I'll go and help my friends go do shit, not just, like, go help them do stuff that's, not fun, like go help them work on their trucks. Although, helping your friend work on their truck is pretty fun. Like, it can be fun, especially back when I used to drink, you know?
Standing in that respect, that you've made something like an implicit promise to them to put their interests above those of a stranger. And if that's true, then maybe you should be more reluctant to kill that person than to kill a stranger, not just because of emotional reasons, but actually ethically, rationally too. However, I do think the main reason that this is specified as the person you love the most in the world is for the emotional reasons. It's not really going to be an ethical consideration that makes you less likely to kill them. It's going to be an emotional one. You don't want them to die. But of course, many people will say that when we're doing ethics, we should be putting our emotional impulses to the side and acting rationally. So, can we kill any person, whether we love them or not, in order to prevent a nuclear warhead destroying a city of 10,000 people? If you're a utilitarian or consequentialist, the answer is going to be pretty straightforward for you here. Of course, you should pull the lever. You should be killing one person to save 10,000. Utilitarianism is quite a cold ethical theory. It tells you that whatever's going to maximize the amount of pleasure and minimize the suffering in the world is just what you should do. But of course, this is complicated by the fact that many people believe in the existence of human rights. They think that by virtue of being a human, you possess a set of moral and or legal rights that...
Red to buy. Oh man, I don't like having the Europe play when there's a bot on the territories, but let's make some alliances. At least there's only one bot.
protect you against various things. And the most fundamental of these is always the right to life. That is, you have a right not to be killed. Now, there are exceptions to this right, or qualifications that need to be made to the right, depending on your view, in certain circumstances. For example, most people agree that you can kill someone in self-defense. Even if they have a right to life, if you have to kill them to protect your own right to life, then you're able to violate that right in order to kill them. There are other views about rights, such as specificationism, which would say that you're not technically violating that person's right, you're just specifying exactly what the right is that they have, and in this circumstance, when they're attacking you, they just don't have a right not to be killed in self-defense. But whichever way you look at it, the idea is that yes, you can sometimes kill somebody despite them having this thing called a right to life. So the question is this one of those exceptions? Is saving a lot of other people one of the cases in which a person's right to life can be violated? And generally speaking, people have agreed that no, this isn't a permissible reason to kill somebody, to violate their right. One of the most famous examples of this is to imagine a patient in the hospital who has 5 healthy organs, and there are 5 other patients somewhere else in the hospital that all need each one of those individual organs to stay alive. The question is, can I kill that first patient, harvest their organs, and use them to save the 5 other people? Most people's...
No. I would say no.
Intuitions,
but I'm not a consequentialist or a
that
consequentialist or a utilitarian. I would say, right? It's consequentialist. Consequentialism. Yeah, no, I'm not a consequentialist. Yeah, that's what I thought.
You can't do this, you're not allowed to do it, despite the fact that killing this person would save many more people. But this doesn't seem just to be because it's 5 people that you're saving. Oh, that's not enough people. It seems to be a matter of principle. It doesn't matter if it's 5 people or 6 people or 10 people. You don't get to kill somebody against their will to save those other people. But then what if we raise this number to something extreme, like 10,000? Then we're in the situation of this trolley problem. And if the principle is that saving lots of other people's lives is not a sufficient reason to kill another person, then in this situation, we shouldn't be killing the person. But this seems a little bit crazy, right? Are we really going to allow this bomb to kill 10,000 people just to protect the rights of one person? I mean, what about the right to life of those 10,000 people? Here's where things get interesting. We need to understand that having a right to life doesn't necessarily entail having a right to your life being protected and prolonged. Having a right to life usually means that someone can't kill me, but it doesn't mean that somebody has an obligation to save me. For example, if I'm drowning in a pond and somebody has to risk their life to come and save me, I don't have a right to demand that they do that, even though them failing to do so would cause me to die. My right to life doesn't mean that I have a right to my life being protected and prolonged, it just means that I have a right for it not to be ended. So in the case of the organ transplant situation, these 5 people who are going to die because they need new organs that simply aren't available to them, it's a sad situation, but their rights aren't being violated just because they die. If they're dying essentially because of natural causes, because their organs have failed, nobody's violating their rights by allowing them to die. Whereas in the nuclear warhead situation, somebody is intentionally sending a nuclear warhead towards a town of people. So these 10,000 people are going to have their rights violated by being killed, because in this case they're not being allowed to die because their organs are failing or something, they're being intentionally killed by a bomb. This means that their rights are actually being violated. So does that mean that even if we believe in a person's right to life, we should still kill this one person to save the 10,000? Not necessarily. Because if you allow that trolley to go and kill that town of 10,000 people, presuming somebody's put those bombs in there intentionally, then yes, those 10,000 rights to life are being violated, but not by you. Those rights were violated by whoever it is that put the trolley in motion. Yes, you allow those rights to be violated, but you're not the one violating the rights yourself. If you're interested in this kind of thinking, there's a paper that you can read by Alan Goworth called Are There Any Absolute Rights? In this paper, Goworth discusses a situation similar to this one. He imagines that some terrorists are threatening to blow up a city, a bit like in our trolley problem, but this time they're asking a mother to torture her own child, and if she refuses to do so, they're going to detonate the bomb. So the question is, are there such thing as absolute rights, rights that cannot be violated? Presumably the child has a right not to be tortured by their mother, but also the mother has a right not to be forced to torture her own child. But here's a situation in which if that doesn't occur, then tens of thousands of people are going to die because these terrorists are going to detonate the bomb. And Goworth says that yes, 10,000 people's rights would be violated here, but not by the mother. It's not the mother who's violating those rights, it's the terrorists who detonate the bomb. So if there are such things as human rights, and one of our basic moral principles is that if somebody has a moral right, you don't violate it, then the right thing to do for this mother would be to allow the terrorists to blow up the city, even though more people are going to...
Wait, what?
being violated. So does that mean that even if we believe in a person's right to life, we should still kill this one person to save the 10,000? Not necessarily. Because if you allow that trolley to go and kill that town of 10,000 people, presuming somebody's put those bombs in there intentionally, then yes, those 10,000 rights to life are being violated, but not by you. Those rights were violated by whoever it is that put the trolley in motion. Yes, you allow those rights to be violated, but you're not the one violating the rights yourself. If you're interested in this kind of thinking, there's a paper that you can read by Alan Goworth called Are There Any Absolute Rights? In this paper, Goworth discusses a situation similar to this one. He imagines that some terror being violated. So does that mean that even if we believe in a person's right to life, we should still kill this one person to save the 10,000? Not necessarily. Because if you allow that trolley to go and kill that town of 10,000 people, presuming somebody's put those bombs in there intentionally, then yes, those 10,000 rights to life are being violated, but not by you. those rights were violated by whoever it is that put the trolley in motion. Yes, you allow those rights to be violated, but you're not the one violating the rights yourself. If you're interested in this kind of thinking, there's a paper that you can read by Alan Goworth called Are There Any Absolute Rights? In this paper, Goworth discusses a situation similar to this one. He imagines that some terrorists are threatening to blow up a city, a bit like in our trolley problem, but this time they're asking a mother to torture her own child, and if she refuses to do so, they're going to detonate the bomb. So the question is, are there such thing as absolute rights, rights that cannot be violated? Presumably the child has a right not to be tortured by their mother, but also the mother has a right not to be forced to torture her own child. But here's a situation in which if that doesn't occur, then tens of thousands of people are going to die because these terrorists are going to detonate the bomb. And Goworth says that yes, 10,000 people's rights would be violated here, but not by the mother. It's not the mother who's violating those rights, it's the terrorists who detonate the bomb. So if there are such things as human rights, and
what are you
one of our
doing,
basic
Green?
moral principles is that if somebody has a moral right, you don't violate it, then the right thing to do for this mother would be to allow the terrorists to blow up the city, even though more people are going to die, and indeed even though more rights are going to be violated, because if we're asking what the right thing for the mother to do is, then the right thing for the mother to do is to not violate any rights. So in our trolley problem, if we do take a rights-based approach, then yes, those 10,000 people do have a right to life that shouldn't be violated, but by you refusing to pull that lever, you're not violating their rights. Whoever set the trolley in motion is. And so if you're asking what you should do as an individual, well, if you believe in rights, the right thing to do is always to refuse to violate a right. And so the right thing to do in this situation would be to allow that trolley to kill those 10,000 people. At least that's the conclusion of Goworth's paper. If we believe in rights, then these rights need to be inviolable. That's what a right is, essentially, by definition. It's an inviolable claim that somebody else can't do something to you. And so sure, if a terrorist threatens to blow up 10,000 people, he's threatening a bunch more people's rights to life, but that doesn't absolve you of your responsibility not to violate rights yourself. Another good reason for thinking like this is pointed out by Philip of Foot, who observes that if we do kill one person to save 10,000 people from being blown up, then all a future terrorist has to do in order to get us to kill somebody is create a significant enough threat. If we kill one person to save lots more, then we're essentially telling the terrorists of the future, this is how you can win us over, this is how you can get us to kill someone that we don't violate rights yourself. Another good reason for thinking like this is pointed out by Philip of Foot, who observes that if we do kill one person to save 10,000 people from being blown up, then all a future terrorist has to do in order to get us to kill somebody is create a significant enough threat. If we kill one person to save lots more, then we're essentially telling the terrorists of the future, this is how you can win us over, this is how you can get us to kill someone that we don't want to kill. You've just got to make the threat bigger. So that's a kind of second order reason not to pull the lever. But you could also interpret examples like these as a critique.
They don't have a... Oh, okay. I was like, what the fuck?
Of the view that there are absolute moral rights. You could say that, sure, Goworth is right. If there are such things as absolute moral rights, then yeah, we should allow this trolley to go and kill 10,000 people instead of killing one with the lever. But then you could just say, but that's obviously not the right thing to do. It's obviously the right thing to do to kill one person to save 10,000, and for that reason, absolute moral rights can't exist. As they say in philosophy, one man's modus ponens is another man's modus tollens. But yeah, look, I mean, it seems to me that if you do believe that human beings have an inviolable right to life, then in this situation, you just have to say, bombs away. And just in time to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, I want to thank ExpressVPN for sponsoring this episode of Trolley Problem Memes. ExpressVPN is a virtual private network that offers a really straightforward but crucial service of protecting your online security when you're browsing online. Whenever you're browsing online, lots of things are happening behind the scenes that you might not be aware of. For instance, in my country, internet service providers are required by law to keep logs of the websites that I visit. It's a little bit creepy, especially if you live in the USA, where this data can be sold to advertisers and big tech. Big tech companies are constantly trying to track what you're doing, to figure out who you are, to build up a character profile that they can use to manipulate to turn you into more profit. The good news is that you can avoid a great deal of this by using ExpressVPN. It's a simple app that runs on your computer.
Watch this last one.
How many of you have gotten a guitar, tried to learn, gotten frustrated, thrown it in the closet?
The trolley problem is more than just a philosophical thought experiment coined by Judith Jarvis Thomson in 1976. It is undeniably, at this point, something of a cultural icon. It is to ethics what Schrodinger's cat is to quantum mechanics. It is, in other words, a little bit of a meme. And in fact, there's a fairly popular Facebook page called Trolley Problem Memes, which catalogues some of the more entertaining and absurd varieties of this famous ethical dilemma. So I thought that I would take a moment to go through some of them and give them, frankly, far more care and philosophical attention than they deserve. Of course, if you're unfamiliar with the original trolley problem, it's rather simple. There is a train hurtling down a track that's about to run over 5 people who are tied up to the track. You have a lever that you can pull, and by doing so, divert the train onto another track where only one person is tied up. Do you pull the lever in order to save the 5 and kill
Ah,
the one?
man, I shouldn't have put that there.
Famous variant on the trolley problem is that of a fat man on a bridge. Instead of there being 2 tracks, a train is now
Yeah,
just
you have to
hurtling towards
push
5
the
people.
fat guy off of the bridge that'll stop the train.
And you're stood on a bridge with a rather large man who you can push off the bridge, and if you do so, he'll crash into the train, stopping the train in its tracks, but of course killing the fat man in the process. And the question is, would you push the fat man off the bridge?
That's gotta be
in
such
order
a
to
fat
save
dude.
the 5
Maybe you're
people?
also saving
And
him
many
because
people
he's
say that
morbidly
although they
obese.
pull the lever to divert the train, killing one
Maybe
person
you're
instead
helping him out of
5,
his misery,
they wouldn't
you know?
push the fat man off the bridge. But that's not particularly interesting, is it, really? Of course, the memes on this page are just memes, but one of the things that makes them so entertaining is that some of them are actually genuinely quite difficult to answer. So let's take a look. Okay, this is just like the original problem. There's a train going towards 5 people and a lever to divert it, and somebody pulls the lever, diverting it into the one person because they want to kill the person on the top. He doesn't actually care about saving the other people. And then there's another case. Someone lets the 5 people die because he thinks that pulling the lever is wrong. So the first guy will only kill one person because he pulled the lever, but he did it because he just wanted to be involved in killing somebody. The second person doesn't touch the lever at all, ends up allowing 5 people to die, but does so because...
What if you pulled the lever and then push it back? Then you could kill 5 people, and then you're even more of like a... Then you're even more of a sociopath. Oh, does he just go 17 verse 16 right there? No, he doesn't. Okay, I was like, holy shit. I didn't mean that. Let's see what he does and see if we accept the alliance.
because they think that's the ethical thing to do. And the question is, which situation is more morally good? So many people think in the original trolley problem that it's okay, or maybe even the right thing to do, to not pull the lever. That is, to allow the train to run over 5 people instead of 1. And one reason for this is because by pulling the lever, you're involving yourself in the situation. If you stumble across something about to happen and you allow it to occur, it might be bad or unfortunate, but it can be said that you're not really to blame for that situation. But as soon as you inject yourself into the situation and start directing its results, then you can be held at least partly responsible for some of the outcomes. So now let's come back to the meme, okay? In the second instance, the person does what we've just discussed, which is says, I'm not going to get involved in this scenario because I don't want to be responsible for anybody's
Oh,
death.
shit!
So they allow 5 people to die, but they do it because they think that's the moral thing to do. Is that...
Bro, green sucks. I just want to kill green after that play. Like, what the fuck was that?
That more or less moral,
but you know, we got bigger fish to fry.
Killing one person, saving the 5, but doing so because you want to be responsible for killing someone, just for fun. What I think we might have here is a subtle critique of utilitarianism. Utilitarianism would tell us that whatever results in the least harm is the right course of action. So in the trolley problem, no matter what, as long as one person dies instead of 5, that's the correct thing to do. That's the right outcome to be aimed at. The problem here that needs to be unpacked is whether ethics is about mere outcome or whether it's about intention and what a person is trying to do by committing certain kinds of actions. I think we can fairly clearly say that if a person genuinely thinks that the right thing to do is not to get involved and allow the trolley to run over 5 people, it's possible they may have made an ethical mistake, but I don't think we can hold them responsible for it in the way that we can hold somebody responsible for intentionally wanting to kill a person. The person who kills the individual intentionally is a more evil person, a more corrupt person, a less virtuous person. And if you don't believe me, just ask yourself, who would you rather be friends with here? Would you rather be friends with the person who, sure, allowed 5 people to die, but did that because he really thought that was the moral thing to do? Or with the person who saved the 5, but not because he cared about the 5, because he just wanted to kill the one person out of a sense of sadistic thrill. And that's why I say that this kind of example can serve as a critique of utilitarianism, because it tells us that the right person or the wrong person doesn't always map on to the person who maximizes or doesn't maximize utility. Sometimes it can be to do with intention or the virtue that a person is espousing. Now, the actual meme asks, is his situation more morally good? That is the situation of the person who pulls the lever more morally good? And I think it would be fair to say that yes, in terms of the situation, this is a better outcome. But if the question were, is that person more moral? I think the question would be an obvious no.
3, 2, 1. The New York Times calls the holdovers laugh out loud funny.
If green doesn't have a trade, we kill green. Should have killed green last turn, honestly. I don't think we had a line for it, though. Otherwise, I would have seen it.
Okay, so here we've got the original trolley problem, but this time you're not the person who is holding the lever. If we zoom out a bit, you'll see that we've got a merger of the 2 original variants with the fat man on the bridge. Now you are stood on the bridge, and you have the ability to push the fat man, which doesn't just prevent the train from running over 5 people, it prevents another person from having to do the trolley problem. The first thing to say here is that it is guaranteed, no matter what, that at least one person is going to die. If you push the fat man, then you know the fat man's going to die. But if you don't push the fat man, there's a chance that person B, by the lever, will not pull the lever and end up killing 5. So by not pushing the fat man, you risk 5 people dying, but by pushing the fat man, you guarantee that only one person will die. The difficulty, of course, is that you're the one who has to involve yourself in the situation in order to guarantee that outcome. One thing that's worth considering here is the psychological effect on the person who has to make the decision. If you don't push the fat man, you're still going to have to go through that trauma of making that decision, but now so is the other person who has to decide whether or not to pull the lever. If you do push the fat man, you probably half or around about half the psychological stress involved in making the decision, which is something to consider. But of course there does just seem to be intuitively something worse about pushing that fat man off the bridge than pulling the lever. Again, we know this from studies that people are more likely to pull the lever, far more likely, than they are to push the fat man. But it's possible that this is actually totally irrational. This may be a purely emotional response, and if it is, then
yeah, no, it definitely is more of an emotional response than anything.
We should commit ourselves to rationality and say that if the right thing to do is to push the fat man, then despite the psychological stress that it's going to bring me, that's the right thing to do. Let me draw your attention to a study that was conducted at Princeton in 2001, where researchers decided to put people under an MRI scanner while asking them about ethical dilemmas, including the trolley problem. I want you to think again about the original 2 versions of the trolley problem.
But,
The first problem being 5 people on the track and you pull the lever to kill 1 instead. The second one being having to push a fat man off a bridge in order to prevent the train from running into 5 people. The mystery of people's response.
I don't know, because 1, the person could still get untied in time. The fat man, you're literally making it so that he dies. Very interesting. Very.
Answers to these problems is that they seem, rationally speaking, to be the same. In both cases, you either
but they're not.
Kill 1 person to save 5, or you don't. The only difference is the mechanism you use to kill that 1 person. And what the researchers noticed is that when people were considering personal moral questions, those are the kind of problems that require personal input, like pushing a man off a bridge, people act a lot more emotionally than rationally. That's the part of the brain that's lighting up and informing their actions. For example, one thing that the researchers found is that the people who said that they would both pull the lever and push the fat man took longer to think about the problem than the people who said that they would pull the lever but wouldn't push the fat man. Now, why would that be the case? Well, this is how the researchers interpreted this. They thought that the delay in thinking about the problem indicated that this particular group of people were working to overcome a primary emotional response. And what this would imply is that the people who say, I'd pull the lever but I wouldn't push the fat man, are allowing their emotional impulses to take over their thinking, at least to some degree, whereas the people who said that they would pull the lever and push the fat man are actually thinking about it more rationally. And so if it is the case that the rational thing to do is to consider pulling the lever and pushing the fat man as just as moral as each other, then in this situation, it's probably the right thing to do to push the fat man off the bridge to guarantee that only 1 person dies, rather than risking the, albeit quite small risk, that the person fails to pull the lever and kills the 5 instead.
And we're back in 3rd quarter planning. Adams is quarterbacking this project, and she is looking pretty tired, Jill.
She's stuck, Bill, and that deadline is looming.
It looms for us all, Jill.
Wait a minute. She just pulled up Grammarly.
That is a smart move by Adams. Grammarly is an AI writing partner that helps you make...
In this trolley problem, 1 person is tied up to a track, and on the other side of the tracks, there's a computer which is stimulating a brain in a vat, and that brain is having the illusion of an experience of being tied up on a train track. Now, crucially in this example, the brain in the vat is hooked up such that if harm comes to the computer, it simulates that harm in this...
Wait, what? Brain in the vat.
Person's simulated reality. So if the computer is mangled up by a train, then the person in the brain in the vat is going to have the experience of being mangled up by the train. So the question is, do you pull the lever? Now what this meme is getting at, and I can't believe I just said that, what this meme is getting at is the question of whether simulated experiences have the same moral value as real experiences, and whether there really is a difference between these at all. You'll have heard of this brain in a vat example before. It's the basis of the Matrix movie, for example. Most people intuitively think that real experiences have more value than fake ones, even if we don't know that they're fake. Robert Nozick famously provided the thought experiment of the experience machine. He imagines that you have an ability to step into a machine which is going to simulate a reality far more pleasant than the one that you're currently living. It'll all be fake, of course, but you won't know that once you're in the machine. And the question is, would you step into the machine? Robert Nozick correctly says that most people probably wouldn't choose to step into the machine,
yeah.
Which tells us that something about the experience being real makes it more intrinsically valuable. It's not just about the amount of pain or pleasure that you'll experience, but whether that experience is real. But to me, this thought experiment is flawed for a number of reasons. First, it may be the case that most people wouldn't step into the experience machine, but it's also possible that most people are being irrational. Just because most people would choose to do something it doesn't mean that that's actually the right thing to do or the most rational thing to do. It just means that that's what the majority would in fact do. And maybe part of the reason why people wouldn't want to step into the machine is because of status quo bias. That is, a bias towards wanting to keep things as they are. For example, imagine an opposite scenario. This time, you wake up tomorrow and you find that you've been plugged into an experience machine for your whole life. And you're on an operating table and the doctors say, welcome back to reality. Life kind of sucks here. Your life isn't very good. Now, if you want, we can plug you back into the experience machine and you'll get your old life back and you'll forget that this ever happened. Of course, there will be some people who choose to take the red pill and stay in the real reality, but I think that at least far more people would choose to put themselves back into the machine that they've been in for all of their lives than would choose to step into the...
I think I would take the red pill.
...experience machine of the original example. As far as I'm concerned, a negative experience is a negative experience. I mean, I might be a brain in a vat right now and have no idea about it, but the experiences of pain and suffering that I feel are still gonna feel just as real as if I weren't a brain in a vat. It's still suffering and should still be counted as the same. So in this scenario, I'm actually quite ambivalent towards whether we should run over the real person or the brain in the vat. Now that might seem a bit weird and a little bit crazy. Why would I favor a computer over a person? But look, this is a brain in a vat. It's a person as far as I'm concerned. It has thoughts, it has at least an imagined history, it has a brain in this particular example. And so we need to consider it morally. But again, this might be where emotion rubs up against rationality, because emotionally I'm far more inclined, and I think if I were actually in this situation, I'd almost certainly pull the lever to destroy the computer instead of the real person. There's just something that feels wrong about not caring whether we save a real person or a brain in a vat.
Yeah.
Of course, if we are going to be ambivalent about which to kill, then there is one consideration, which is that the real person is likely going to have people that will miss him. He's going to have friends and family, and there will be at least some people who were aware of his existence. A brain in a vat obviously doesn't have any friends and family except those that are invented by the brain in the vat or by the computer. So by destroying the computer, you also destroy those people, and none of it actually matters. And so if we are going to be ambivalent about what's intrinsically worse to do, I think this factor pushes us towards running over the computer.
I need you to tell me why you killed my daughter.
I didn't kill her. I've been framed. Your daughter was already...
Okay, this one's a bit of a headache. Earlier we had a trolley problem that I think could be interpreted as a critique of utilitarianism. Here we have a critique of deontology. Deontology, of course, is the view that certain things are right and wrong as a matter of principle, not to do with consequence. So the deontologist might think that killing somebody is wrong. Doesn't matter what the consequences are. It's not about balancing the amount of lives that are being saved or anything like that. Actively killing somebody is wrong and so should be avoided regardless of the consequence. So here we have a situation where a train
That's me.
Going down a track, and at the moment it looks like it's going to kill 2 people. And what the person at the lever can do is pull the lever to redirect the train away from the one person on the track. But now it's hurtling towards 5 people, and the only way to save those 5 people would be to pull another lever, which puts the train back on the original track and kills that second person. If the deontologist thinks that injecting yourself in the situation and being responsible for someone's death is always going to be wrong, if you pull the lever, then you are the one killing that one person on the track. And for a deontologist, killing is going to be wrong regardless of the consequences. If you don't pull the lever, you don't kill somebody. If you do, then you do, and so that's the wrong thing to do. But of course the intuitive problem here is that that last person is going to die no matter what. But here the deontologist at the lever has the opportunity to prevent the first person from being killed too. Sure, one person has died instead of 2, but now this person's somehow responsible for this. And the question is, would you rather be responsible for one person's death, or at least partly responsible in this kind of scenario, or would you rather allow that person to die anyway, plus another person, just to allow yourself to not be a part of the situation? It seems callous to not save that first person. It seems insane, morally speaking. But this is why the meme says that this is the day the deontologist started questioning his belief system. Because, of course, in order to save that first person, you need to put yourself into the situation. So, of course, this isn't really a question, this is more of a critique. But if you're asking what I would do, you can bet that I'd be pulling the lever twice. Okay, here we have the original trolley problem again. 5 people on one track, 1 person on the other. But the track is connected with a loop, meaning that no matter what you do, everyone's going to end up dead. And the question here, in this meme, is which order should you kill the people? If you pull the lever, and therefore kill the one person first, then 5 people need to watch somebody be brutally killed in front of them. Whereas if you allow the train to run over the 5 first, then only one person has to witness a bunch of death, but they have to witness 5 people being killed in front of them. So is it worse to make 5 individual people see one person be killed, or make just one person see 5 people be brutally killed in front of them? Interesting question. For me, however, I think this one is fairly straightforward, and I'll explain why. Let's say that one person sees another person get brutally killed. That's a lot of trauma. By forcing a second person to also witness that train running over a single person, you've doubled the trauma. You've times it by 2, because the same amount of trauma is going to be experienced by each of the viewers, and so now...
Oh, is he going to hit that 21?
One lot of trauma, you've got 2 lots of trauma. If you add 5 people who all have to witness this person being run over on the track, then you've 5x'd the trauma. You've got 5 times the amount of trauma than if one person were to witness a single person being run over. Now imagine that we're running over the 5. Of course, watching one person be run over is going to give you 1 lot of trauma. But watching 2 people getting run over is going to increase the trauma, but it's not going to double it. It's not going to be doubly as bad.
What is this one?
But if you're asking what I would do, you can bet that I'd be pulling the lever twice. Okay, here we have the original trolley problem again. 5 people on one track, 1 person on the other. But the track is connected with a loop, meaning that no matter what you do, everyone's going to end up dead. And the question here, in this meme, is which order should you kill the people?
Wait. Kill 1 person in front of 5 people before they die, or kill 5 people in front of 1 person. I mean, it is going for the 5 anyway. They should have put the 1 here.
If you pull the lever, and therefore kill the one person first, then 5 people need to watch somebody be brutally killed in front of them. Whereas if you allow the train to run over the 5 first, then only one person has to witness a bunch of death, but they have to witness 5 people being killed in front of them. So is it worse to make 5 individual people see one person be killed, or make just one person see 5 people be brutally killed in front of them? Interesting question. For me, however, I think this one is fairly straightforward, and I'll explain why. Let's say that one person sees another person get brutally killed. That's a lot of trauma. By forcing a second person to also witness that train running over a single person, you've doubled the trauma. You've times it by 2, because the same amount of trauma is going to be experienced by each of the viewers, and so now, rather than 1 lot of trauma, you've got 2 lots of trauma. If you add 5 people who all have to witness this person being run over on the track, then you've 5x'd the trauma. You've got 5 times the amount of trauma than if one person were to witness a single person being run over. Now imagine that we're running over the 5. Of course, watching one person be run over is going to give you 1 lot of trauma. But watching 2 people getting run over is going to increase the trauma, but it's not going to double it. It's not going to be doubly as bad seeing 2 people be run over than it is seeing 1 person. If you don't agree with me, imagine we got up to 15 people. Imagine you had to watch 15 people get run over by a trolley. Ask yourself, if we turned 15 into 30, would that double the trauma? It would probably make it worse, but probably by a bit less than actually doubling it. And so, let's imagine the 2 scenarios. If we run over 1 person and force 5 people to watch it, then we've got 5 lots of trauma. If we run over 5 people and force 1 person to watch it, we don't have 5 lots of trauma, because by adding 5 people, you're not timesing the trauma of the 1 viewer by 5, but by slightly less than 5. And therefore I would allow the train to run over the 5 and then run over the 1. One final trolley problem of my own invention that I want to consider is this. Imagine that a trolley is running down a track, and on this track are ISPs, hackers, and big tech. Riding in the trolley is your internet data, and it's about to be violated by these organizations. But by pulling a simple lever, or in this case, pressing a simple button, you're able to reroute your data onto a different track, thereby protecting it against these threats. Well, it turns out that that button actually exists. It's just down there in the description, in fact, and will allow you to get 3 months free of today's sponsor, Express.
I wonder if it's gonna back off of my Yeah, dude, what the fuck is going on with Vosh? Bro, I mean, not what the fuck. Like, obviously, I know what
Vosh.
the like. He's just a fucking degenerate, disgusting person. But like, what the fuck, bro? Lolly porn? I didn't even know what that was. I had to look up what the fuck lolly was. I felt weird because I was like, fuck. Now I have some weird search shit on my phone, but that's disgusting, bro. What the fuck? He likes to look at anime CP. Basically, disgusting. Degenerate, bro.
Bosh. There has been a lot of unfortunate circumstances that have been unfolding before Bosh, and one can easily describe this as unstable. Because horses stable? Nah, stupid joke. Ethan has been milking this, thinking that a horse is a cow, and you can see that on his live streams, he's coming out and really going all out, trying to emphasize to everyone that Bosh is into horses.
Howdy, partners. Welcome to the H3 podcast. We got ourselves a whole barn of a show out here today, boys. That's right.
Now, just to give you guys a quick summary as to what's going on, Vaush is exposing himself for being someone who is interested in horse corn. And of course, the other particular type of corn, polycorn. Now, I'm going to use the word poly in substitute of lollipop, if you know what I mean. Because believe it or not, the word poly is also being censored. As a matter of fact, if you go to Twitter, you can see that there's a trending tab for it. But when you click on it, it doesn't allow you to access the page. And just in case you guys don't know,
I mean, good. Considering what the fuck it is. It's disgusting. What the fuck? And then he's out here always saying like, oh, fucking conservatives are pedophiles. Conservatives are pedophiles. He says that shit like that all the fucking time. Then look at what the fuck his porn is. He says like, well, he doesn't even say conservatives. He calls them fascists and says that fascists are pedophiles. But he's calling like Matt Walsh and shit fucking fascist. He's such a... Oh, dude. You have no idea how much I just dislike this guy.
What poly is, I can tell you,
like, he doesn't annoy me right when he's talking like some people do, but like just his ideas are so fucking stupid.
As this right now, it has to do with underage particulars. I'll leave it at that, okay? And not in a good way. It's all a fantasy of very explicit content. And so Vaush inadvertently clicked on a file that exposed the kind of content that he's into when it comes to X-rated
and he
content.
likes horse
dicks. How
dicks.
the internet took it, and it wasn't exactly with open arms. No, my friend, It was far beyond that. If anything, there was many people just mocking the entire situation, and then there was other particulars such as Tipster and Keffels who brought attention to the entire matter and attempted to defend it.
And I know there's a lot of people who are going to disagree with my position on this. That's fine. Not everybody has to agree.
Who the fuck is this guy?
With me. If I legitimately thought that Vosh was advocating for things that would potentially bring harm to children, I would not be defending him here.
And so you can only imagine that not a lot of people took this very well. As a matter of fact, because Tipster is so unbelievably
Who's
hated,
Tipster?
It was even worse for him. Ethan ended up coming out responding to Tipster because, believe it or not, Ethan went on an Instagram rage where he was just posting so much content about the situation that when he finally got to Tipster, he just let out a big ass fuck you to him.
Very disappointing.
What
Tip
did
continues, considering
Tipster?
how well he's done recently at.
What did Tipster say? Let me see.
The kind of content that he's into when it comes to X-rated content. And you can only imagine how the internet took it. And it wasn't exactly with open arms. No, my friend, it was far beyond that. If anything, there was many people just mocking the entire situation. And then there was other particulars such as Tipster and Keffels who brought attention to the entire matter and attempted to defend it.
And I know there's a lot of people who are going to
defend it?
Disagree with my position on this. That's fine. Not everybody has to agree with me. If I legitimately thought that Vosh was advocating for things that would potentially bring harm to children, I would not be defending him here.
And so you can only imagine that not a lot of people took this very well. As a matter of fact, because Tipster is so unbelievably hated, it was even worse for him. Ethan ended up coming out responding to Tipster because, believe it or not, Ethan went on an Instagram rage where he was just posting so much content about the situation that when he finally got to Tipster, he just let out a big ass fuck you to him.
Very disappointing. Tip continues, considering how well he's done recently at making good faith arguments. I expected better from Ethan. Oh, I was doing so good. Shut the fuck up. Dumbass.
So you can see that Ethan, he's just like tired of it. He's like, bro, like, who are you, man? Like, why are you in my space? You ain't in my level, bro. I don't need to give you the time of day. And that's how a lot of people feel, because to Ethan, he's thinking like, bro, why are you giving an opinion on this? Like, if you barely understand the situation, because if you guys don't know, in Ethan's last stream, he ended up going over all the context of every single clip that has been produced of Vaush talking about CP.
Granted, a lot of those were not the full context. And it's fair to set it up that way because online, a lot of the people that see those only see those.
Mm-hmm.
So today we give you that, and now we give you the full thing.
So if you guys want to go ahead and check that out, I'm going to go ahead and leave the stream linked down below in the description with the timestamp so then you guys don't have to go search for it. Go ahead, check it out, and then you guys can see more of the context. I will say this, okay? I think that out of all the people who are giving opinions online, I think that the one person who should definitely give a real substantial, with a lot of substance, opinion is Vosh. Because when you take a look at Vosh's stream, it's just an entire rant. He doesn't really back up anything that he says. Unlike Ethan, where he actually went from point to point and even backed it up with the context, you can't help but walk away and think that, hey, you know what? Maybe Ethan's right. So if Vosh wants to convince us that, hey, you know what? I'm not the person who people describe online, you're going to have to do the work, man. Because in the same stream, he talks about how he's going to rely on the faith of people to determine whether he really is or not a degenerate.
As frustrating as it is, I really do think that like a fair engagement with my content, with what I believe and what I say, I really do think that most reasonable people of good political disposition will see that, and upon contact with me, watching my stuff, talking to me, whatever, like anything, you know, will think I'm all right.
My dude, that's not how it works, man. Unfortunately, people don't have the time to go and engage with your content. They have work, they have family, they have to attend, they have their own business they have to run. It's up to you to provide that information for all of us. As much as you would want people to go out there and be good faith and attempt to search who you really are, we just don't have the time to do that. I'll give you guys a good example of this. So for instance, Vosh talked about in the stream that Ethan was being snaky.
It's mostly just really saddening because I thought that
how was he being snaky? He's calling you a fucking, he's calling you what you are. He's not being fucking snaky. You're a fucking pedo. You're a disgusting, degenerate
I
pedo.
know he made fun of. I think at some point he was like, huh, as if I would ever be friends with this pedophile, which is really disingenuous because the last time we talked on Twitter DMs, he was really friendly to me. Just a little while ago when he was going through the rounds because he was doing...
Well, yeah, because he didn't know you were a fucking pedo then.
Like weird arguments with Hassan about Zionism or whatever. He didn't like a tweet that I had liked, so he reached out to me and asked me about it. We talked for a bit and I disagreed with him. But eventually I moved over and said, oh, okay, and I unliked the tweet at his request.
That's what I'm talking about. Do you see how he makes claims, but there is not one shred of a DM or any evidence that can back up his words? That's literally his entire stream. He doesn't back up anything he says. Because as it stands, Ethan did the work. He actually went to go get all of your videos with the full context, and he broke it down on stream. And not only did he break it down, he attempted to understand what your argument was.
How does somebody get to the point of possessing this content? Must be illegal.
The problem is, I think what he's saying is, if you...
Are they talking about actual CP? Right there?
You have it. You're not...
Yeah, they are talking about actual CP. I was like, lolly porn is just degenerate and disgusting, and you shouldn't fucking own it because it's... But with actual CP, it does hurt someone. It does hurt a child, too.
But what you are doing is
Supply and demand.
Exactly. You're creating a demand for a product.
He talks about all of this.
Okay, let's watch it. Well, I'll wait then. I'll wait.
He even said, all right, let's watch more of the video so he can add more context to it. But at the end of the day, man, like, Ethan is against you. He made arguments against you, and you made a video ranting. If that video was to be sent to court and Ethan brought his evidence, like, you would lose, man. There's just no way that you can get by and win a court case with that kind of evidence. Just a video ranting about it and saying that, oh, you know, I hope that people will find it in their own interest to go out of their way so they can check out who Vosh truly is. Although the circumstances are not tantamount, you didn't even want to do your own due diligence to see what kind of arguments Ethan made against you.
You should really watch this segment. They didn't just watch the out-of-context clips. They watched some of the explanations, too. No. Oh, pigeon. Jesus. Leapt across the desk. No. I've done this so many times. So many times.
You've done what? Jerked off to child porn? What the fuck are you saying that you've
guys.
done?
5 years I've done this. And every time it's the same thing. Every time things go down this road, it's always the same collection of, like, really aggressively bad faith, obviously dishonest. You know, I think at one point, I saw this from the Discord, somebody said that Ethan said that I had, like, a folder full of CP or something. What the fuck?
I don't remember Ethan saying that, but what I can tell you is that I was probably distracted when he did probably say that. I don't know. But the question is, why is it that you're willing to believe this guy and not actually check out the content yourself? Because of your lack of engagement with Ethan, your subscriber count is free falling at about 9.8 meters per second square, and it's accelerating. And I would suggest that you get on that right now while the topic is still hot, because if you don't, your career is gonna go out for milk and it's never gonna come back. So anyways, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it here. If you guys want to go ahead and follow me on Twitter and on Instagram, go ahead. I have the links on the banner. And
I would try to kill Just a little bit of a tricky pickle right here we got ourselves in. Why do people have to bot out, bro? That sucks.
in the description down below. So yeah, man, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it here. That's all I have for you guys, and yeah, hopefully you guys learned something today.
All right, folks. I got my hair cut. I'm back. What did I miss?
Yeah, he just looks like a pedo. Disgusting.
Vosh. There has been a lot of...
My name is Chris, and when I was 19 years old, I was diagnosed with a pituitary tumor that almost killed me.
Long story short, the tumor was blocking my hormone production. I was put on antidepressants and synthetic.
I made a trolley problem memes video last month, and you guys seemed to enjoy it quite a bit. So I thought that we'd look at some more memes together, this time brought to you by Established Titles. More on our sponsor for today in a moment. The artificial intelligence trolley problem. You've been replaced by a fully sentient robot you have designed. Would you still be held morally responsible for the outcome of the situation? So here we have the classic trolley problem. 5 people versus 1, but instead of you getting to pull the lever, it's an artificial intelligence of your design. And one of the biggest problems of artificial intelligence research, and one of the scariest, is known as the alignment problem. That is,
Alignment problem.
if we are able to develop a fully sentient artificial general intelligence, will its goals align with our own? If it doesn't, then this artificial intelligence could seek to overcome us or destroy us or enslave us if it becomes more powerful and intelligent than we are, and we're getting in the way of the goals that it's developed for itself. So the question at hand is, are you personally responsible for the decision made by the artificial intelligence, given that you're the one who created the artificial intelligence? This question actually has real-world practical implications. For example, artificial intelligence is being used to control self-driving cars. Self-driving cars use artificial intelligence to recognize dangerous objects, or if a crash has already happened, artificial intelligence will take over to scan the environment and see how it can minimize the damage. So situations like this trolley problem can actually arise in real life. If artificial intelligence is driving a car down a road, and that car has to make a decision whether to swerve into one person or to swerve into 5, that's a decision that artificial intelligence is really going to have to make. And the question here might be something like, look, if Elon Musk designs Teslas that have some kind of artificial intelligence making these decisions, is Elon Musk personally responsible for every decision made by the car? Intuitively, I want to say no, but it is a no with one caveat. The reason I say no is because the thing that makes artificial intelligence so revolutionary and extraordinary, but also so terrifying, is that it really is its own beast. It's its own intelligence. This isn't something that human beings have typed into a computer and let run out its course as... designed, it's really reacting in real time to the real world, just like a human brain would do. For example, look at the images being produced by artificial intelligence programs such as DALL-E 2. You may have seen these flooding the internet recently. These are images that are created via prompts. You simply type in what you want to see, and artificial intelligence will produce that image for you. This isn't some collage of other images that exist on the internet. It's not finding images of these different things and putting them together. It's creating brand new imagery from scratch using its own intelligence. Now, the reason that this is important to understand is that if we want to say that a person should be held morally responsible for the decisions made by an artificial intelligence that they've created, in my view, this is just like saying a person should be morally responsible for the decisions made by their own children. And imagine I have a child, and then I put that child in this trolley problem, and the child gets to choose whether to pull the lever. Am I responsible for the decisions made by that child? No. Even though I created that child is its own agent with its own intelligence. But here's the caveat. It's the alignment problem that I mentioned earlier. Imagine that human child again. In the same way as artificial intelligence has an alignment problem, if I have a child, there's a possibility that that child's goals might not align with my own. If I'm not a very careful parent, if I'm neglectful of my child, if I don't teach them ethics and manners, and I don't socialize them properly, then they could grow up to be a pretty horrible person. They might grow up to be a serial killer or something like this. Now, if the reason why this child goes on to make these immoral decisions is because I didn't take the proper care in making sure that their interests would align with my own, then I think I can be held at least partially responsible for those actions. If I create an artificial intelligence and I'm not careful enough to make sure that its interests align with my own, then if that artificial intelligence goes bad and starts killing people or making the wrong decision in a trolley problem, then I think that I'm at least in part responsible for that. But of course, if we make the artificial intelligence so aligned with human goals that it always does what human beings always want to do, then I'm going to be responsible all over again because the artificial intelligence is going to just do what I want it to do. So it's a difficult question to answer, but I think it's going to be dependent upon exactly how the alignment problem is addressed in the production of the artificial intelligence that's pulling the lever in this instance. Just a quick intermission to ask you a question. Have you ever wanted to be a lord? Probably not, but then that's probably because you never thought it was possible. As it turns out, the possibility is a very real one. And I'm excited to announce that that is a possibility that I have recently taken up by becoming Lord Alex O'Connor, as evidenced by this certificate. And I was able to become a lord thanks to Established Titles, a wonderful company who have provided a rather novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while also helping global reforestation efforts. This project is based on a historic custom in Scotland where landowners are referred to as lords or ladies. And by getting a title pack with established titles, you get at least 1 square foot of dedicated land with a unique plot number from a private estate in Edelston, Scotland. And crucially, established titles work with the global charities One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, such that with every order, a tree is going to be planted somewhere in the world to help with global reforestation efforts. What this means is that not only are you becoming a lord or a lady, but you're also helping the environment in doing so. It's up to you to decide which motivation is more important to you, but all you have to do is use the link in the description, establishedtitles.com/Cosmic Skeptic. And it turns out that the first 200 people to get a plot of land with established titles using my unique referral code will get a plot of land right next to mine. So the first 200 of us can build something of a little Cosmic Skeptic empire somewhere in Scotland. And Established Titles is currently running an early Black Friday sale, meaning that if you use the code Cosmic Skeptic at checkout, you'll get an additional 10% off. This makes for a wonderful last-minute gift for somebody else, or just for yourself if you fancy having the actual genuine option to change your name on your plane tickets, on your credit cards, on your dating profiles to Lord or Lady by going to establishedtitles.com/Cosmic Skeptic. The grandfather trolley problem. You are a time traveler. A runaway trolley is heading to kill 5 people. If you pull the lever, only 1 will die, but the person on the track is your grandfather, and your parents haven't even been born yet. What if you pull the lever? Okay, so the grandfather paradox is famously one of the most important paradoxes of time travel. If you go back in time and kill your grandfather, what happens? Now, I'm actually of the opinion that precisely because of paradoxes like this, time travel into the past is impossible. There is a kind of backwards time travel that could be possible.
It would be going into like different dimensions though and stuff.
Though, that's based on the relativity of time. We know, thanks to Einstein in large part, that time is not linear. Time passes differently depending on how fast you're going and how much gravity is around you. For example, if you were to go and orbit a black hole for a number of years and return to Earth, you'll find that a lot more time will have passed on Earth than passed for you on that spaceship. And this is because time, just like space, is affected by gravity. It's warped and stretched. So imagine you're in a situation where time is passing twice as fast for you than it is for another person. After 10 years on your clock, only 5 years will have passed on the other person's clock. And so although 10 years has passed, if you go and rejoin that other person, it will be kind of as though you'd gone 5 years back in time, because only 5 years would have passed for them. But what you can't do is go -1 or -2 or -3. You can't go back from where you started, in other words. But supposing it were possible, then were you to go back in time and kill your grandparents before your own parents were born, then because your parents never would have been born, you never would have been born, but then who went back and killed the grandfather?
All right. Well, I'm gonna be done for the day.